Hello and welcome to Truro Town Council. Before we begin our agenda for March 3rd, 2025, I, Kathy Hendon, Mayor of the Town of Truro, acknowledge we are Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. We acknowledge the peace and friendship treaties and recognize we are all treaty people. We recognize African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose histories, legacies, and contributions have greatly enriched all of our lives, known as Mi'kma'ki and Nova Scotia for over 400 years. Thank you. We will now proceed to our public agenda. This is a public council meeting for the Town of Truro for Monday, March 3rd, 2025. The first item is the approval of the agenda. Mr. Dolter, are there any changes, omissions, deletions to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Mayor. There's one deletion under old business, item 4A, request for decision, MPS LUB follow-up and review amendments. That item will be carried over to the meeting in April.
Thank you. I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda as amended, removing that item, which will be old business number 4A. May I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda? Councillor Fleming has made the motion and seconded by Councillor McGrath. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, motion is carried. Thank you very much. Item 2, the approval of the minutes from February 3rd, 2025 from the public council meeting. If you've had the opportunity to read the minutes and there are no changes, I would call for a motion to approve the minutes. Councillor McGrath, seconder. Councillor Pryor. Any questions or discussion on the minutes from February 3rd, 2025? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the February 3rd, 2025 minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, motion is carried. Thank you very much. Item 3, petitions, delegations, and correspondence. Mr. Dolter.
Nothing today, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to move on to item 4, which is old business. We've removed item A, so now under 4, we're going to move to A was B, request for decision, expropriation of storm sewer easement. Mr. Dolter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is a expropriation of storm sewer easement for 15 and 25 Clifton Court. So the Town of Truro plans to undertake a capital project that would see stormwater system in the areas of Cobequid Drive, Fundy Drive, Clifton Court, and Harris Drive enhanced. This project will include the installation of a new bypass stormwater system that would run from the intersection of Fundy Drive and Cobequid Drive via an easement over 15 and 25 Clifton Court, extending into the stormwater detention system at Truro Elementary School. Due to the project's timing and a stall in the negotiations with the landowners, the Town of Truro will need to expropriate the easement interest in the following. Stormwater easement 25E1 as an easement interest from 15 Clifton Court, Truro at PD 21164661. This easement is a 5-meter wide and contains an area of 345.3 square meters of land and is located along the southern boundary of the property. Stormwater easement 25E2 as an easement interest in 25 Clifton Court, Truro, PD 201646553. This easement is a 2-meter wide and contains an area of 138.4 square meters of land and is located along the northern boundary of the property. Both are outlined in the attached easement sketch, which Council has in their package. Expropriating the easement now will enable the town to take possession of the land in time for the construction on the project to begin in the summer of 2025. Under Section 52 of the MGA, Council may expropriate the real property where it considers it necessary to acquire real property for a purpose for which it may spend money. Acquiring property to build the storm sewer line falls within this definition. The town has jurisdiction and authority. Under Section 7.1 of the Expropriation Act, an expropriation requires the approval of the approving authority. Under Section 8B, in the case of the municipality, the approving authority is the municipal council, and a resolution of council approving the expropriation is required. The expropriation will be for the easement interest, meaning the town will have an easement over the expropriated parcels. So, Madam Mayor, there's 2 motions that I have there, so we'll deal with those individually. So motion 1 would be it resolved that the town of Truro expropriate an easement interest for the purpose of constructing and maintaining a sewer line and related storm sewer infrastructure over and under a parcel of land identified as storm sewer easement 25E1, shown on an easement sketch prepared by Darren Travers, dated February 21st, 2025, over lands of 15 Clifton Court, PD 201-64661. The rights of the easement are substantially in the form set out in Schedule 1.
Thank you, Mr. Dolter. I know there'll be discussion on this, and before we can have that discussion, I need to call for a motion. I'd ask for someone to make that motion, please. Councillor McGrath, a seconder, please. Councillor Pryor? Councillors, questions? Councillor Talbot?
Yes. What would be the impact on the rest of the neighborhood if we don't expropriate this property and do this work?
So this actual requirement for this easement and this stormwater pipe is part of a comprehensive project which includes road work, curb work, and some other things that the Director of Public Works can probably describe. I guess. So what we're trying to address is downstream properties or properties below this on Harris Avenue that have been receiving water that's been coming right down the road and flooding in that area. So by taking the water into the detention pond at Truro Elementary School, again, that water will be controlled and will be allowed to enter the system in a more timely and won't overcharge our systems and result in water being put on the road. So again, I mean, to answer your question, this will improve the overall conditions within the entire neighborhood, and particularly will benefit Harris Avenue. Mr. McKinnon, anything to add on that one?
You pretty much covered everything. I could add a lot of details to it, but this goes back to 2012, 2013, whenever we built the stormwater detention pond on the school property to try to mitigate flooding on the Harris Drive and Crowell Drive, McCormick Drive neighborhood. It got severe floods in 2012 and 2013. Water rushing down the street like a river. We added a second pipe on Harris Drive to add capacity to the system. We built a stormwater pond. And at the time, on the flood presentations that I gave to council, one of the slides was, next steps. And next step showed us trying to divert what I called the headwaters of the storm system, all the storm water from Cobequid Drive and Fundy Drive and a little area on Pleasant Street up near the water tower. All of that storm water comes down Cobequid Drive and into the Harris Drive system without any benefit of being detained in the detention pond. So the next steps at the time were proposed that we somehow get a pipe through from Fundy and Cobequid through the Clifton Court properties over to the stormwater detention pond. And since then, we've been working on ways to do it, and we came up with, originally we wanted to do it on the north side of 15 Clifton, and then once we surveyed it, we realized that wasn't possible, that a pipe through the north side of their property would only be a foot underneath the street and would be above the ground through their property, so we'd have to build a berm through their property, which would back up more storm water into the backyards on people on Clifton from 15 and above. So our only option was to go between the houses with a pipe, and of course, if we're going to go between the houses, weren't going to dig a trench between them. We're going to directionally drill it through so that it would be less impact on both properties. So we proceeded to do the designs based on that. We talked with 15 Clifton Court owners initially back in 2023. We let them know that we were trying to work on a plan. We thought that the original easement would only be on 15 Clifton Court based on the property mapping. But once the legal surveyor got in to do the easement, it was determined that there wasn't as much property on 15 as we thought, that some of the easement that we need was also impacted 25 Clifton. So at that point, we also engaged with talking with the folks at 25 Clifton Court as well.
Thank you, Mr. McKinnon. Okay. Now, the next one in the queue is Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think there were actually several more before me that got microphones got turned on before when we were trying to get to Mr. McKinnon, so I would allow those councillors to go before me if they wish.
No, you can go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead then. Mr. McKinnon, a question about the detention pond capacity. We are diverting water from Cobequid Drive and Fundy Drive through across Clifton over to this detention pond. Are we moving the problem from one area into another? Does that detention pond have the capacity to take this additional strain that we're going to be putting on it with this new pipe?
The stormwater detention pond does have the capacity. We've monitored it, any of the big rain events that we've had in the last few years, including the flooding that happened 2 summers ago, I believe now. And the stormwater detention pond has lots of capacity. It's never been of the 3 cells there, none of them have ever been to the top.
Okay, thank you. And then based on emails from the property owners proposing an alternate route to the north of 15 Clifton Court, you had mentioned before that that was not feasible, but for the record, could you let us all know why that route is not feasible in your professional opinion?
Yeah, the summary that I just gave mentioned it. It was initially our preferred route because it was farther away from houses. It just doesn't have the grades to do it. When we do the plan and profile of that route, the pipe is only 1.5 feet underneath the asphalt, not enough cover with our frost conditions that we get. It would damage the pipe would damage the street. And then going through the yard at 15 Clifton, it would be, I forget the exact numbers, but I think 0.5 meter or maybe even 1 meter above the ground through their property. So we'd have to build a berm to cover the pipe, plus a berm for frost protection over the pipe, which would essentially create a dam through their side yard and backyard and dam up water in their yard. So that's why we picked the route that we picked, because it has sufficient cover under the street and underneath the properties.
Okay, and then that alternate route as well to get to the detention pond, because I've been up that way, the slope seems to me, but I am no engineer, so again, defer to your expertise, sir, that we would have to be trying to push the water uphill. And I understand that we could probably use a pump, but then that introduces another point of failure if we can't rely on gravity. So if that pump fails, if there's a power outage, we are then unable to pump that water, and then we end up with the same problem again. Is that correct?
Yes, the plan and profile I just verbally described to you is if the water's running by gravity. So yeah, if we were to bury the pipe deeper, so we would have cover under the street and under their yard, we would have to install a pumping station in the back of their yard or the front of their yard, depending on where we put it.
Mm-hmm. As having looked at the proposed route between the 2 houses, I can only imagine, again, I'm not an engineer, nor am I a construction specialist, but working around power lines between the houses with the 7 meters of easement, I can only assume that this would have to be a last resort, because I certainly wouldn't want to pick that as my first option. That looks like a very difficult area to work in. And this lateral drilling, so we're not going to be disturbing the surface. We're going to kind of go underneath to run that pipe. Is that correct?
That is correct. When you directionally drill, you have to dig an entry and an exit pit at either end of the line you're drilling, but that's the whole length from the front of their property through the side of between their houses would be all directional drilled.
Great. And then at some point down the line, as we heard from Senior Engineer Browning few committee of the holes ago, talking about asset management. At some point, that pipe will need to be replaced. What would be the mechanism for then replacing that pipe? Will we be able to do it again with directional drilling, or would there be an impact coming in from the surface on that easement?
When you directionally drill, you typically use a HDPE pipe, high density polyethylene pipe, and it is a seamless pipe from one end to the other in the directional drill area. So rarely, if ever, would you ever have issues with it. You know, it could always plug up or whatever, but yes, we would explore, if anything went wrong with it, we would explore directionally drilling or some kind of non-intrusive way of relining the pipe or whatever it would take. But if necessary, we could excavate if it was feasible, and we would ensure that there's no damage done to the houses, and if there was, we would repair it, but that shouldn't be the case.
Right, I understand we want to have as little impact on the community members as possible while still achieving our goals. Madam Mayor, if I could ask of Director Fox regarding the easement, and my understanding, you know, the property owners will not be able to build on this easement in case we did ever need to get in there to do repairs. Based on the existing bylaws, are there any current restrictions to building that close to a property line?
Sorry, I'm not quite clear on your question. It sounds like a legal question, actually, if you're asking about
I think he's looking for setbacks.
Yes,
setbacks from construction.
if I can maybe try to be a little bit more clear with my question, if one of the owners wanted to, say, build a shed in that area between the two houses, build a fence, something of that nature, are there restrictions, setbacks, the 2-meter setback to say you can't build that close to the property line?
It would depend on the wording of the easement agreement.
Okay, but without the easement, just as it is now before any sort of construction is done, are there any current restrictions that would prevent them from building there already that may be impacted by this easement? May not be clear.
I'm sorry, I'm really having a hard time following that question.
No problem. Let me try again. Without the easement as it stands currently,
Yes.
if one of those property owners wanted to, say, build a shed in between those two properties, are there any current restrictions or setbacks that would prevent them from doing that? Because it is a narrow space.
I'm not familiar enough with the details of where the buildings are in relation to the property lines, so I can't really answer that question. There's a lot of variables there.
Okay, thank you, sir. And a question to, I assume, Mr. Dolter regarding the communications with the residents. And I understand there have been some communications with the property owners at 15 for some time and with 25 more recently, because it was more recently that this was determined that this would be the only viable route. Is anybody here prepared to be able to give us a timeline on those communications?
I
Ms.
think,
Grant?
I think Ms. Grant is the one that was doing most of the discussion, so I think she can talk to that.
Yeah, I made contact with the owners of 15 Clifton Court in December, but previous to that, engineering had been having conversations with them for quite some time. For 25 Clifton Court, we did contact them mid-January. That was the initial correspondence on that property.
Okay, so short notice for number 25, less short notice for number 15. And then I assume this maybe is to our solicitor or anyone who can answer. Should a vote be approved today for this easement, that is still, there's still opportunity for the property owners to negotiate and avoid expropriation, is that correct?
If council votes to approve the expropriation today, then it becomes effective basically right away. The town would file expropriation documents at the land registry, and then at that point the town would become the legal owner of the property, but would not be entitled to enter the property and do any work for about 90 days. And during that period of time, there can be further negotiation over the amount of compensation, or if there's other concerns that maybe could be addressed about, you know, what happens during the course of the work and so on. There would be, you know, a period of time to achieve that as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is only my second expropriation vote here at council. I do not like to do it if it can all be avoided, but from what I'm hearing, this is really, in order to be able to address the flooding downhill and with the grading that is there, this does seem quite possibly the only option. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Mayor Hinton. I as well have a few questions and maybe a couple comments as well. We'll see. I know we can't probably get the maps that we have here, the storm sewer plan that we just received today from Mr. Trevors. I'll ask my question through you to Mr. McKinnon. And do you have this in front of you, Andrew?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I gotta find it in the package somewhere.
Okay.
Is it in the package or the email?
It's in both. It's the new storm sewer plan, and I will note, this was done on the 21st of February. So I have another question, is if the 25 and 15, the landowners, have they seen it since the 21st? As this is a new document, so they haven't even had an opportunity to view it, as far as the emails I've read and stuff, but I could be wrong.
I have your easement plan in front of me now.
Okay, good, thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
I can comment on the plan.
Okay.
So this plan is dated February 21st, I believe, and it's the most recent one. I can't see the full plan on my page. There was a small issue with the survey that needed to be updated, but the original survey plan we got back was provided to the property owners on February 3rd, I believe, or February 4th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm looking at the profile of the new storm sewer. Do you have that, Andrew? There we go. No, the profile, that's there, that part there. I see here it says some like these HDPE to be installed by the owner. I see installed by the owner in different spots. Is that the homeowners that have to install those, or that us? Who installs that?
That is us.
Okay, so we're the owner, and then the contractor part is,
Yeah, these
contract.
plans are prepared for us as owners of a project
Right.
to put the project out to tender for, because there's a lot of other work, so.
so it's
we're-
assuming that we're expropriating the property.
Yeah, we would take care of the financing of the contractor to do this portion of the work versus other portions of the work. The contractor, whoever gets our tender to do the job, would do the work.
Okay, thank you. So let me check what else I got here. And this one's for our solicitor. You mentioned the process for expropriation and how they have 90 days for negotiations. Is there an appeal process for these property owners to?
Yes, so if the town and the property owners are not able to reach an agreement on the amount of compensation, then either the town or the owners can ask that it be decided by the Utility and Review Board, and there's a hearing process before the UARB where the amount of compensation gets determined by the board.
Okay, thank you. And one more question. Mr. McKinnon, if we do postpone this for 1 month, what kind of impact will that have on the construction time, and will it be able to be completed in time in this year's construction season?
Thank you. It'll be impacted an extra month, and that would be another month of potentially dry weather to be able to do the work. It may mean it may make the difference between being able to do it this year or not. It's really tough to forecast our construction seasons anymore.
Right, yeah, but they're, as you know, they're building apartments right now in the wintertime, so, yeah.
But-
I suffice to say, February 3rd was my house, you want to put a great big pipe within 2 meters of my house, February 3rd is not enough notice for me to have proper contact with different people, so I'm not going to support this motion if it comes ahead today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Thomas, please.
Yeah, I'm also concerned about the short notice to 25. The house number 25, excuse me. Boy, oh boy. First of all, I have a question about, for Mr. McKinnon, when it comes to Fundy Drive and Cobequid Drive, and currently the water that's going into the back of number 15. I see that there is a new French drain. Is that designed to take care of any water that comes off those two streets that's presently going into the property 15 to alleviate the flooding in their backyards that's taking place?
Originally, we talked about putting a new French drain in to help with any water in their properties, yes.
Okay. Will that do it, and as well as some curbing on Cobequid Drive?
Yes, the water that flows off of Cobequid Drive now, off the shoulder of the road into the backyards of Clifton, the curb and gutter is going to mitigate that.
Okay. So you're saying that when this project is completed, that the water that presently ponds during extreme rain events in 15 Clifton will be dealt with?
It could never be 100% dealt with. They're still going to get water coming off the backyards above them. If we do enough, in conjunction with this project, if we do enough French drain work and tie it into the existing ditching system, we've been up there probably 15 years ago that we tried to enhance the ditching system of the lower side of this property and the backyards of the properties below it to try to get the stormwater into our storm system on Clifton Court.
Right. So from what I understand, you're saying that this will be another attempt at trying to solve that problem of water moving into the backyards on Clifton Avenue, at least removing some of that water.
Sorry, what would be another attempt?
Well, installing this new French drain, curbing on Cobequid Drive to divert water.
Yeah, it's all going to help the situation, yes.
Okay, thank you for that. I have a question about willingness to take a look at that alternate route. I've been involved with this somewhat, at least talking to the landowners, and it's my clear understanding, I want to make sure this is understood, it's my clear understanding that the engineering department in the town of Truro has looked at the alternate route and looked at it closely, given it a serious consideration, and have come with the conclusion, though it was the preferred route even by them, that it won't work. I repeat, it won't work. However, the landowners are not convinced of that, and they've had people look at it, none of them being a civil engineer, take a look at it. If they were to hire a civil engineer, this is my question, if they were to hire a licensed civil engineer to take a look at the alternate route and design an alternate route that was functional, believed by the civil engineer, could that civil engineer come to the town office and the Works Department and present that as a viable option? Would that be entertained?
We would look at anybody's plan that comes to us, but you need to be clear that the lower side of the property that we preferred to go to will not work unless we install a pumping station.
Right. So I'm talking without a pumping station, without any more complexity than is already being presented in the plan that you're presenting that will expropriate properties, the property between both houses. That plan, it would be no more complex than that plan. It would use gravity as the flow of water, et cetera, et cetera.
We would love to see that.
Okay. So I think that's a reasonable request. So, yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mrs. Mayor.
Yeah.
Ms. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy. Councillor Graham.
Madam Mayor. I have two questions. The first is, Mr. Dolter, could you tell us about the funding for this project, where it's coming from, who's invested, and are there time restrictions on the funding in terms of completion and when the project needs to be started?
Yeah, this is a project that essentially, the full project, not the pipe itself, the full project is budgeted for about, our estimates are about $2.7 million. We have 1.3 million just recently allocated to us from the province of Nova Scotia to the tune of about 1.3 million. That funding is for the current construction season. So again, we'd have to go to the province and ask for an extension on that funding should the project not be underway this summer. So I mean, you know, there could be some danger, depending on what circumstances are out there, that their portion of the funding would not be available. But I mean, the bigger concern is if the project didn't go ahead, is addressing the flooding conditions in this area. That would be the bigger concern with a further delay. But the funding itself, again, is designated for this construction season.
Okay. So does that mean, just math, 1.4 is an investment from the town? We're making that?
Again, it always comes down, we have 1.3 million from the province, and whatever the tender comes in at, the overall cost of the project is our cost. So it's up to, it's up to the 1.4 or whatever additional would be required to complete the job.
Was that budgeted in our 2024, or will it be in our 2025-26 budget?
I guess the answer to that is yes. This project was budgeted for the last summer, and again, it ended up not moving forward because of some other complications, and particularly even securing the property, part of the discussion today. So we were looking, when we originally thought it would just involve 15 Clifton. But we have in the current budget that'll be coming before council and for approval in April. This project, yes, is budgeted for this year.
Okay. My second question, I'm wondering about recourse for the homeowners if there's any trouble. There's been some suggestion that it could have negative impacts on homeowners' foundations and I don't know what else, but I'm wondering what recourse homeowners would have if they incur some challenges. Is it who's liable, who has responsibility? What would be the process for homeowners if they experience difficulties?
Well, I mean, we take responsibility for the project. So if there were complications that were linked back to the project, and we could see clear evidence that they were due to the project, we certainly would cover any cost for remediation, whatever that might be.
So when we talk about that 90-day period that homeowners have to address any concerns or negotiate with the town, is that the kind of thing that they could negotiate? Would that fall into what's appropriate during that 90 days?
Well, one of the important things from this, I mean, if the expropriation were approved today, is that we need to talk to the homeowners and talk about their concerns with this course going through between their properties. If there's potential tree loss or other concerns, and it's a good and we need to sit down and explain the full project to them so they can understand what to expect as far as what they'll see for infrastructure, what they won't see for infrastructure, and clearly as well, we'll listen to whatever concerns they might have about the process and the construction itself. So hopefully to alleviate any fears and and to address potentially remediation of anything that may be damaged during the process.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Talbot, please.
Yeah, I guess my concern is, listening to the discussion, we've had 3 engineers look at this. All of them come back and said that alternative route will not work. So if we go ahead and delay this for a month, nothing's going to change except some of the timelines could be missed. And then we'll be talking to the other residents whose properties are being flooded. So that's my input.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further questions from the council? I think since it's been a lengthy discussion, Mr. Dolder, would you mind reading that motion again, please?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. So, be resolved that the town of Truro expropriate an easement interest for the purpose of constructing and maintaining a storm sewer line and related storm sewer infrastructure over and under the parcel of land identified as storm sewer easement 25E1, shown on the easement sketch prepared by Darren Travers, dated February 21st, 2025, over the lands of 15 Clifton Court, Truro, PD 20164661. The rights of the easement are substantially in the form set out in Schedule 1. And again, I do direct council's attention to Schedule 1 just to make sure you have reviewed that as far as this description of the easement rights.
Thank you, Mr. Dolter. A motion has been moved. It's been seconded. I will now ask for all those in favor of approving the motion to please say aye. Okay. Contrary minded, Councillor Fleming. The motion is approved. Thank you.
So,
And now we're going to move on to the second motion, Mr. Dolter.
yep, thank you, Madam Mayor. So be resolved that the town of Truro expropriate an easement interest for the purpose of constructing and maintaining a storm sewer line related to storm sewer infrastructure over and under the parcel of land identified as storm sewer easement 25E2, shown on the easement sketch prepared by Darren Travers, dated February 21st, 2025, over the lands at 25 Clifton Court, PD 20164661. The rights of the easement are substantially in the form set out in Schedule 1. Okay, what's the typo?
We just had the wrong PID number.
Okay. Okay. Yep. Okay, so just I want to make a correction to that motion. So the motion stands as read, except the PID number should read 201-64653. So all the remainder of the motion, Madam Mayor, remains the same.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dolter. I would now call on a motion to be made. Councillor McGrath, seconder, please. Seconder. Councillor Pryor. Questions by council, and I see Councillor McGrath is up first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. While I understand the, I guess the reasoning behind splitting the motions, it seems to me if we approve the first motion, we have to approve the second. If we deny the first, we have to deny the second, because unless Mr. McKinnon can indicate otherwise, these easements are necessary. If we approve one and not the other, then we are still unable to move ahead with this project. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
All right, thank you.
And the reason they are in two motions is because they do involve two different PID numbers, right? They are two different properties.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, the only concern I have is, and I think it's a real concern, and that's the amount of time that this property owners have had to consider this infringement on their property. I think it's very short, and I'm concerned about that. And I understand it's unfortunate. The town just came to that realization lately, but that doesn't help the landowner of 25 Clifton Court. Doesn't help them at all. That errs in our court, not theirs. So I'm concerned about that. However, knowing all the facts, I can't see how delaying it will help, but I want to bring that to the table because that is a concern, and I think it's a valid concern on the property owner because of the delay. So I'm going to leave that to council, but I do want you to know that it's a concern. I don't know if it's a deal breaker here of voting in favor of this today, but it is a concern. You know, they're late coming to the game here, and so I'll leave that at that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Mayor Hinton. I agree with the comments of Deputy Mayor Thomas. For me, it's the old adage, treat other people like you'd like to be treated. And if this was my house, and I was told February 3rd, you're going to put a great big, I don't even know how big the pipe's going to be. Andrew, can you tell us?
Yep, oh, sorry. Yeah, it's a 300 mil pipe.
Sorry? 12 inches? 3 meters.
No, 0.3.
0.3.
0.3 meters, 300 mil, 12-inch pipe.
Okay, thank you. The same. If I was told February 3rd, less than a month, and you've mentioned this has been going on since 2012. Back in 2012, was there any, well, obviously there was with 15 because you're planning on going through their property, the north side of it, correct?
Back in 2012, we just knew we wanted to connect the two systems together. I was hoping it would even go right down Cobequid to get into the pond, but that just doesn't work. Okay. It wasn't until 3 years ago that we started looking at the plan and profiles, and the preference was to go on the north side of 15, right. And that's too low as well. Okay. So.
Yeah. But again, back to my point, February 3rd is not much time for people to make a decision one way or the other what they feel about this and contact legal advice. It's just, anyways, in my opinion, it's just not enough time, and that's why I'm not going to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Fleming. Councillor Graham.
I'm not sure if February 3rd is enough time or not. I don't know how one would evaluate how much is enough time. I'm wondering, Mr. Dalter, do we have a process in place or bylaws which determine how much time is appropriate?
Again, it's difficult to set a specific length of time depending on the situation, and I'm not going to argue that February 3rd. I believe it's a sufficient amount of time. Would more time have been better? Certainly, it would have been. But again, I go back to the original comment. We still have an extended 3-month period where we can have discussion. The actual design of the system is really not something that can be debated because it has to follow engineering principles. So really what the time is required for is discuss with the property owners how to best address their concerns in context of the project that's going to move forward. So we can look at timings of these, and there may be other policies out there. We don't do that many easements, so that's probably why we do them, or sorry, expropriations. We've done them in the past with, but again, it's fairly infrequent, so we don't have a set policy because every situation has been different. So we can, if council so directs, we can look at establishing a policy. However, when something's done so infrequently, the time of putting a policy together, it doesn't necessarily make sense, because I think equally staff has to be sensitive to, try to look at all the issues in each situation and, on its own merit. So
I appreciate that, and I understand that it would be complicated to put a process in place. But when it does come to matters of expropriation, homeowners, landowners have paid taxes potentially for a number of years, and going forward will be paying taxes. And I feel it would be to our benefit to put standards in place when it comes to expropriation, the steps that we will follow in order to do that. And I'd like to just make that as a suggestion so that we don't find ourselves in this boat arguing whether or not February 3rd was enough time or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fleming, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Hinton. Just one more comment. I forgot to mention it earlier. In my opinion, approving this expropriation, I know that the homeowners have 90 days to negotiate, but it puts them in a negative negotiation state because we've already approved the expropriation. So what are you going to negotiate? It's already been approved.
The price of the property, essentially, that's what
That's it.
we're dealing with now, yeah.
There's no more,
Pricing and again, any concerns that we are able to address within that as well too. So again, we're open to hear what their major concerns are and hopefully allow them to understand. Let me be clear, we understand the significance of this. I mean, going, as Mr. McKinnon indicated, ideally, we would have been on the north side and it wouldn't be impacting. But again, if there was another way to do it, we would be doing it that way.
well, there is another way, but it's
It
a
just
pumping
not-
station.
Yeah, well, there's another way to do it, unfortunately, not to.
And I'm not saying I support pumping stations.
Yeah, it just, it
It's saying
doesn't.
there is
yeah.
another way to do it.
Yeah, but it's not feasible. Isn't supported by the engineering.
Thank you, Councillor Fleming. Councillor Talbot.
Yeah, I mean, I recognize we're elected by the people and we are the people's voice. But in this situation, time is not going to change the facts. We have a problem. We have a water problem that's affecting more than the two properties that we're dealing with. We have legal authority to expropriate. So yes, it would have been nice to have a little more time to sit down, give people options, but at the end of the day, it would not have changed the decision. We have 3 engineers that told us that this is the way we have to go. The preferred route that the residents wanted, we were told it will not work. So time to me is a red herring, and it would not stop me from making a decision today.
Thank you, Councillor. I think one thing we can all agree on is that expropriation is a serious and a sensitive topic, as we can tell by the comments today. I'd ask you again, Mr. Dolter, because it was a lengthy discussion, if you could just please reread motion number 2, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So be it resolved that the town of Truro expropriate an easement interest for the purpose of constructing and maintaining a storm sewer line and related storm sewer infrastructure over and under the parcel of land identified as the storm sewer easement 25E2, shown on the easement sketch prepared by Darren Travers, dated January 21st, 2025, over the lands at 25 Clifton Court, Truro, PD 20164-653. The rights of the easement are substantially in the form set out in Schedule 1.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dolter. All those in favor of approving the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, Fleming and Deputy Mayor. The motion is approved. Thank you. We are now moving to item 4C, which is now 4B, under old business, the Regional Strategic Plan for Tourism. Mr. Dolter, please.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. So in early 2023, the County of Colchester, the Town of Truro, the Town of Stewiacke, Millbrook First Nation entered into a MOU to develop a unified regional tourism strategy. Collectively engaged Tourism Atlantic and issued an RFP to identify a consulting firm to facilitate the creation of a Tourism Atlantic Strategic Tourism Expansion Program, also known as STEP. The deliverable, as articulated in the RFP, was as follows: collaborate in the development, implementation, and monitoring of regional tourism marketing and development strategies that consider regional assets, local accommodation providers, sector strengths, regional opportunities and challenges, and consider provincial and regional priorities. The Regional Strategic Plan will help guide information of a tourism organization or similar structure and its governance model and develop key actions over the next 3 years. This plan was presented to Truro Town Council on the January 30th at the Committee of the Whole meeting. It is also being presented to other municipal First Nations councils in late January and early February for their approval. Collaboratively, the 4 partners have also been collecting a tourism marketing levy since April 2024. As outlined in the MOU, the intent is to pool regional marketing levy funds and use those funds to execute the recommendations of the Regional Strategic Tourism Plan. In order to execute the recommendation of the STEP, a short-term implementation plan is required. Additional details for that are attached. So, Madam Mayor, the proposed motion is be resolved that Truro Town Council adopt the Regional Strategic Tourism Plan as presented and attached, and authorize staff to proceed with the development of a detailed short-term implementation plan.
Thank you, Mr. Dolter. I would now call for a mover for the motion, please. Councillor McGrath, seconder, Councillor Pryor. Any questions or discussion on this motion, Council? Councillor Fleming.
Just a question on the motion. Why short-term plan, not a long-term?
Well, because the longer-term plan is going to be decided by the governance organization that gets put in place by the councils.
Gotcha.
So they'll develop the long-term strategy.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Hi, thank you. I am just going through this. Here we go. The working committee, I'm wondering how that was formed. Was it an application process? How did members become a part of that working committee?
Madam Mayor, I'll just defer that to Ms. Grant.
Okay.
Yeah, the working committee was set up to guide the development of the STEP plan, so the plan that's presented in the package. And it was made up of members of government organizations that work in tourism and economic development, along with accommodation partners and tourism attraction partners. Because it was a regional initiative, it was partners across all 4 regions that made up the working group and oversaw the plan through its creation.
Was it through an application process?
I don't believe so. I believe it was selected by members through both consultation with Tourism Atlantic and NACOA, and through the 4 staff partners from each of the partner municipalities or First Nation group.
So how long are each of those members appointed to this working committee?
So I guess we got started about a year ago, and they just finalized sort of their duties in our meeting in February. So there's no longer a role for the working group moving forward.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That clarifies a lot.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Looking at the briefing note here for the motion, there's nothing there under implications. What are the implications if we decided to say no today? What would be our impacts? There's nothing here in the note. But I assume there would be significant impacts if we were to say no and the other communities have said yes, and then we are cut out of this expansion plan.
Yeah, so the 3 municipalities and the First Nation partner at this point are tied to creation of the plan. But then that MOU said that the plan would come back to each of the respective councils for their approval and adoption to move forward. So council's not committed at this point to move forward, but the intent of the MOU was to pool the funds and act regionally as we move forward.
So if we did say no today, we still have those funds. We could use those on our own. I'm not arguing for that. I'm just asking the question because I like to have all of the information that I can have. I do think it makes sense for all of us to work together. I just didn't see anything here on implications.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could keep the funds ourselves and use those for tourism development in accordance with provincial legislation.
Yeah, and one of the advantages of the approach that we've taken too is for, particularly with the funding and how it's being contributed, but the bulk of it coming from Colchester and from, and Millbrook as well, and the town, is the fact that a lot of, particularly in the larger events, they benefit everybody within the region, and therefore it makes sense to, go forward with a regional plan on how that's going to be done and pool the funding and therefore pool the benefit that comes from hosting, particularly the larger events that may come in, may be part of or subject to being funded by the tourism levies that are being collected.
All right, and then this short-term implementation plan is essentially as was presented to us by Mr. Innes at the last committee of the whole, correct? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Thank you, Ms. Grant, for that. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Madam, my voice today. Excuse me for my voice. Madam Mayor, I'm just wondering about the planning for implementation. There's what's called an executive committee. Can someone explain to me why an executive committee and not a board of directors? What's the difference there? Is that a difference in function or what's happening there?
Yeah, so short term, the plan recommends setting up a tourism society. But in order to set up that society and decide the application process for members, there needs to be an executive committee set up that's impartial, that can look at and review those applications and get the tourism society set up and running. So the intention would be the executive committee would roll into the overall tourism society, but that executive committee would be in charge of reviewing applications as to who would be society members moving forward.
Right, but as far as powers, my voice is back, but as far as powers are concerned, I'm not going through puberty, but we're not quite sure right at this point. As far as, but there's no, like, division of powers the same, is that right? Like, a board of directors and the executive committee,
Yeah, once the tourism was formed, the executive committee and the members of the society would roll into a board of directors.
Okay, thank you for that. Two other questions. One is, when it comes to single venues in this region, let's say they had a need or something that they could do that would improve their site, improve the number of site visits that they would have, improve the attractiveness of that, or would have a marketing idea. Can they apply for money singly, or will these dollars just be distributed on a sort of a mass marketing basis?
No, the intent is to allow each of the particular groups or interest groups to apply for funding.
Okay.
Similar to what council does with our grant process. So you would make application, and there is a criteria that is going to be set up, basically a matrix on, what economic impact it would have, number of people attracted, those types of things, where they would assess each of the applications. So again, obviously, in a lot of cases, you're going to have more applications and you're going to have funding. But again, the board of directors in this case, once it's finally formed, will assess all those applications in order to make a determination on what's best for the, best use of the funds. Ms. Grant, anything else on that?
Nope, yeah, I'd say that, that's mainly related to major event funding, but there's also a component in the STEP plan for tourism development. So the society would need to establish whether they wanted to do that through grant funding or through other means as well. There's also a large role for marketing and promotion of the region as a whole as well.
Well, I'm glad to hear that last comment, because I do believe that our location's important, because you can get to most places in the Maritimes within a day from Truro. And this is an excellent place for anyone touring the Maritimes to stay and use as their home base. So I think that's something that we should be promoting as well.
Yeah, the organization itself would also be able to, in addition to the levy money, would also be able to apply for additional grant funding and things that are always out there as well too as an organization. So again, that may allow it to leverage additional funds.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Mayor Hinton. My question is regards to the society, their budget, and if they overspend their budget, who's responsible for the losses?
You want that one, or?
Sure. So the intent would be that all money that comes in through the marketing levy, aside from like administrative costs for collecting the marketing levy, would be pooled and under the control of the Tourism Society. It would be similar, I would say, to the Downtown Truro Partnership, where they have a pool of funds that they can operate within, but there wouldn't be any like capital infrastructure or anything where it would be a detriment to the organization that.
Yeah,
the pool.
Essentially, they'd be paying staff, maybe one or two staff. They would, they're not an operational entity that they have infrastructure that could cause, power bills and other things that could run amok. So their costs would be
I'm
fairly
thinking
tightly
more
controlled.
funding for big events or whatever.
Well, I mean,
that
at the
don't
end of the
make
day,
the money they think they're going to make. And
they can't allocate what they don't have, essentially. And the good thing is we've got, and I guess the benefit of being in collecting the levy for almost, by the time this is all in place, it'll be almost a year. They'll have a fairly good idea on what their annual revenue is going to be from the levy. So I think it should be fairly predictable.
But to answer my question,
If they essentially, given the fact that they have the funds now, nothing's been allocated, like for the 25-26 year, they should be allocating money they already have. So right now, they'll always be holding money almost in advance of actually allocating it, so they can't over-allocate.
I agree, but if they do over-allocate, to answer my question,
Well, again,
who's responsible?
we'd have to put safeguards so they don't over-allocate. I mean, essentially, it would be a
So
separate
I guess
entity.
what I'm asking for, the guarantee that it's not going to be the town of Truro that's going to be responsible for any extra money they spend.
Well, they've got a budget and they've got the revenue, and they'd have to, and at the end of the day, they have to adjust allocation. So a later year event, if they over-allocated and missed, then they'd have to cancel some of the other funding, right? Because all the events are not going to have to at the same time. They'd have to track it, make sure everything was on, and they'd have to track their revenue as well.
So we're
And-
not going to be responsible.
No, we're not going to be responsible. I
Thank
mean, it's the same thing. We adjust
all I
during the
needed.
year if we're over, right? They'd have to do the same thing.
Thank you very much, Counselor. Seeing no more questions, I'm now going to call for the vote. All in favor of supporting the motion, please say aye. Contrary minded? Supported unanimously. Thank you, Council. Item 4D, which is now 4C, the request for decision for old business, the renaming of the tack grounds. Mr. Dolter.
So, thank you, Madam Mayor. So, as council is aware, in 2022, Town of Truro Council committed to renaming the tack grounds in honor of the No. 2 Construction Battalion. This commitment was announced during the national apology to the descendants of the No. 2 Construction Battalion on July 9th, 2022. The aim of this commitment was to rename the grounds once the revitalization project was completed, which is expected in September 2025. A subcommittee of the African Nova Scotian Community Strategy Committee met on February 19th to discuss the entries. Through that discussion, the subcommittee is recommending the following name: No. 2 Construction Battalion Athletic Facility. So, Madam Mayor, the proposed motion is be it resolved that council approve the renaming of the tack grounds to No. 2 Construction Battalion Athletic Facility as recommended by the subcommittee. And Madam Mayor, there is a briefing note attached that outlines the details here. The name that was arrived at was a combination of suggestions by the Truro Middle School and as well as the Cobequid Education Center. So again, the committee was pleased that they were able to include those two educational institutions and giving them credit for the renaming. And again, there was a good discussion among the committee looking at all the alternatives that were there. And again, there was general consensus that this name honored the construction battalion and fulfilled the commitment that town council had made.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dolter. Before we have our discussion, I need a motion to be made, please. Councillor Graham, seconded by Councillor McGrath. I do want to say that I'd received 2 calls about this, the naming, 1 message and 1 office visit. I've had lengthy discussions with our CAO, Councillor Talbot, and other councillors about this. I did go back and find the 2022 year in review that the town puts out, where it was mentioned twice about the tack grounds going to be renamed. Initially, I had thought that we should somehow incorporate the last part to still say the tack grounds. That was why initially, and I think you can recall that discussion,
Yep.
Mr. Dolter, that you and I had. It was announced in 2022 nationally by the former mayor at the national apology that the name would be changed to recognize the national apology. So who would like to start the discussion? So Deputy Mayor, you're up first.
Yeah, all I wanted to know is I'd like to see us to send a thank you letter to the middle school and to Cobequid Educational Center for, we called everybody to participate and they stood up and gave 2 excellent names that were chosen. And so I'd just like to recognize that, like council to recognize that in a letter.
Yeah, we will, Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Deputy Mayor, and as well, we'll be sending a $50 check to both schools.
Excellent.
For their involvement in the process.
Thank you.
Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also wanted to just recognize the schools and everybody who contributed to the renaming contest, and I'm happy to see this being moved forward and happy to support the motion.
Thank you very much. Were there any comments, I'm curious, from the Heritage Committee, Deputy Mayor or Councillor Pryor, that you want to share today? Were they supportive or anything they'd like to add? Deputy?
I don't think it was an issue. I think they were very supportive of it and saw it as a very good thing to do, to recognize the 2nd Construction Battalion. I was there. I think most of us were when the Prime Minister came for that day, and it was an exceptional day, a very emotional day for many people.
One of the most moving days of my life.
Yeah, I think it was probably the best day of my public life in any way in the town of Truro. So I was very proud to be a part of that, just to sit in the audience and witness it. It was quite remarkable. So, thank you.
And Mr. Dolter, if I may, with those that did have concerns about the tack name, maybe you can just explain exactly what's going to happen there. Right now, there is absolutely nothing that says what the tack ground is. I had someone ask me the other day what it stands for.
Yes,
So
yes.
could you just elaborate on that if you don't
I
mind?
certainly can, Madam Mayor. We've said it, and you know, I want to reiterate the fact that our intent is basically to celebrate the history of the tack grounds. And part of the display that will be as you enter the grounds, or the facility, I should say now, when you enter the facility will be a storyboard that will take you through the history of the tack grounds and talk about all the events and all and the people involved in starting the tack grounds, from the very beginning, to include all that has happened there. We're looking at different options for a short overview tied into a QR code where people we can update the history and as things change. But the intent is not to forget about the tack grounds and what it's done and added to the community, but to celebrate it as part of this, as well as, again, as council's aware, to talk about number 2 Construction Battalion. There'll be a memorial put in place on the site as well, too. And really, we want to tie the history of the tack grounds into the history of number 2 as well. So again, we can talk about their experience in the tack grounds during, in the 1916 era there where they did their training. So again, the intent, the town clearly wants to celebrate the tack grounds and celebrate and honor number 2 Construction Battalion with the work we're doing here. And again, as of right now, if everything goes as planned, the grand opening of the grounds is scheduled for the 1st of August, where we'll do the unveiling of the monument and the unveiling of the storyboards for both number 2 Construction Battalion and the tack grounds itself. So again, we're hoping that everybody will come and celebrate with us.
We hope so. For the thousands watching today, and don't we hope there were, can you just say the name again that's been proposed in case someone missed it?
So again, the new name of the facility will be the number 2 Construction Battalion Athletic Facility.
Thank you very much. Council, all those in favor? Please. Oh, you do, Councillor Graham, certainly.
It really isn't to do with the naming of the tack grounds, but it does have to do with the tack grounds in general. There's a lot of interest in the progress of the tack grounds as well as the ball field. I was wondering if moving forward, it would be possible to have monthly updates on the progress, how we're doing, where construction is at, and how we're doing monetarily on the projects.
The monetary piece is probably a little bit more challenging, but we can certainly update on the progress. For instance, the baseball field itself is almost complete. We're just doing the last work on the building itself. So again, that's almost completed, and then we're in discussion with the contractor on the progress of the tack grounds itself, but that should be back on schedule. So we can give monthly updates on where that is for any major changes as they move forward.
There have been some concerns about both projects running over budget. Just wondering, and I appreciate that you're not in a position today to address any of that, but why can't we have financial updates on the progress of the projects?
Because, the thing is, they'll only be a mark in time. They were not going to be where it finally lands. At the end of the day, wherever we are, whatever the shortfall is, what we can't collect through donations, which we've been very successful in doing, will be covered by the town. Again, if I can provide some information to council on that as we progress through, if that's what council wants to have.
Thank you. I don't mean to take away from the importance of this motion, but I wasn't sure where else on our report I could bring up that topic. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Talbot.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment just before the vote. If you go back to the formation of the strategy committee, which come out of the watching deer while black, at the end of the day, the ask was to recognize some of the contributions made by the African community. And I think this renaming and the renaming of the fire hall shows a degree of sincerity from the town. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you for that, Councillor. All those in favor of supporting the motion for the renaming, please say aye. Aye. Contrary minded. The motion has been approved. Thank you so much. Now, item number 5 is the in-camera summary report. Mr. Dolter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So on February 20th, 2025, council met in camera. During that session, there was one land matter that was discussed, and there were 2 legal matters that were discussed with council as well. And today we have a meeting, in-camera meeting. I asked council to meet after. We have 3 items on the agenda.
Thank you so much. Item 6 now, we're moving to our department reports. After each report, council may ask questions. After all the reports are presented, I'll call for a motion to approve them and any final questions. And our first report is from our CAL. Mr. Dolter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the first item is the budget. So the budget 2025, senior staff met on February 20th and 21st to review and update departmental budgets and review projections for fiscal year 25-26. Through the review process, we worked to address issues identified during our strategic planning sessions, as well as some of the initiatives identified departmentally to maintain and deal with changing demands. With the recent budget, as with recent budget years, although revenue is up, with increases in assessment values, increases in costs and service demands, they continue to place pressure on our resources. Meetings are scheduled with council in the next few weeks for its review and revisions as applicable. So we hope to have the final document ready for the public council meeting in April, that'll be on April 7th. Next item is union negotiations. We'll be getting back to the table with the firefighters local 1627 in the next few weeks with the hope of closing off the major issues. CUPE local 734 have given notice to begin bargaining as well, and we'll be discussing dates to get those negotiations underway. Their agreement, the CUPE agreement, expires at the end of April. The solar project for Cumberland and Truro. The partners continue to move through the application process for the community solar project. We are reviewing the business case for the proposal to ensure the viability of the assumptions and the revenue and cost estimates. As further information is available, will be brought to council for review and consideration. The area group is finalizing the application for the purchase power agreement. And that application hopefully will be in the next few weeks. So, and then we'll be waiting on that process. Strategic initiative and communications. So just wanted to talk about a few things there. The equity and anti-racism strategy. So the walk in the unconscious is our contractor, and they were contracted in January to assist in facilitating the strategy. Work will began in February, and stakeholders stakeholder engagement will be occurring in March. The final report is anticipated to be delivered in May. Public transportation, so the town and county are working on regional transportation feasibility plan. Arcadius was hired to facilitate this initiative. Community and stakeholder engagement will be occurring in March and April, and the plan is expected to be completed in September 2025. Accessibility plan update. So the town of Truro is collaborating with partners at the county, Village of Bible Hill, and town of Stewiacke to update the regional accessibility plan. And left turn, right turn is the consultant that's been engaged to provide the consultancy for this update. A final draft is anticipated to be presented to council in March. So the EDIA coordinator met with all departments in February to review the initiatives outlined in the accessibility plan and to develop a work plan for 2025 that aims to further implement the recommendations of the plan. Finally, the deer information session. So unfortunately, I believe we had a meeting, a rec meeting that night, so I wasn't able to attend this. But the Dalhousie University held a public deer information session on February 26th. Staff participated and presented on the town's deer management strategy and managed hunt. Feed Nova Scotia and Dalhousie also discussed their partnership with the town regarding the managed deer hunt. There were, I think, 50 people in attendance, and then there were people online as well, I believe. We do have interest from other municipalities that are watching this, so again, we will continue to, as we move into the new fiscal year, to plan for the 25 hunt, and we'll see where that goes. Work continues to go and work continues to move forward on the 150th anniversary and showcasing throughout 2025, so that continues to go forward. And again, we've been working on our social media through a bunch of different things between traffic and water advisories, community advisories, and the meetings, and then a lot of posts on activities throughout the town. And again, I think our social media presence has improved quite a bit over the last little while. So again, we're happy for that. And council has an updated funding program overview. And the one of note we talked about during earlier discussions, you'll note last item of the approved items is the growth and renewal of infrastructure development, which is GRID, and that is the 1.381 million that we talked about earlier that was received on February 25th. So again, that's will be quite advantageous to moving the project forward. And that is my report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dolter. And I just want to say we had the Cambodian delegation here last week in connection with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and our joint effort with Middlesex, Ontario. I want to thank Rena Renault and also Sarah Bell Deloriers with the Downtown Truro Partnership. We passed out the scarves at my office, Mr. Dolter, and they were very pleased with that. And we all received a scarf as councillors, and it was wonderful, wonderful to work together. And I also just want to thank Alison Grant and all the staff that worked so hard on the 2024 year in review. I think it's the best one we've ever put out. I said to someone, if I was from another town and I picked up this publication, I'd think, Truro's got something good stuff going on. And it's just a great publication. And I've heard so many comments and calls from people saying how much they enjoyed receiving it in their mailbox and are reading it and very impressed with it all. So I want to thank everybody who put that together. It's very, very well done. We should be very proud of that. Now, we have questions starting with Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Mayor Hinton. I agree with all your previous comments. We do have a lot going on and a lot of wonderful, great things going on in the town of Truro. In regards to the recover issue for the farmers market, I know we're looking at doing the whole building over and what have you. We've been advocating for 24-hour washroom downtown, and I think that with this revamp of the building might be a good time for us to maybe consider that part of the whole.
Yeah, that could be part of the consideration. So again, I didn't identify that in my report because council, like I said, just been briefed to the committee of the whole. But yeah, that's Recover will obviously they're doing the analysis on the potential for the energy refit. So when we get into the detailed planning for that, if council so chooses, that's something that we could include as part of the planning on and how that would work.
That'd
certainly.
be great. Thank you. One more question regards to the two bridges, our Walker Street Salmon River Bridge and the train bridge from Queen to Prince Street. Any updates or?
The Walker Street Bridge, we have no update on that. We'll be talking to Bible Hill in the next little while as we're going back into construction season. Hopefully the province has budgeted to move that forward, but we haven't had an update on it, although we will reach out and do that. The CN Bridge, that's been for the most part left in the hands of the county. So they have been in contact with CN. As far as we know, it is within the CN budget process, and they'll be reporting back to us on when if they've got funding and when they're going to commence their work.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Dolter, you mentioned that the upcoming budget meetings are coming up that council will be reviewing. Are those meetings open to the public? I recall that they were yesterday or last year, but if you could just confirm.
Budget meetings, if people do want to attend, they can attend to observe. We are not, again, it's not an open public session other than for observation if people choose to attend.
Right, yeah, I should have mentioned that. It is similar to public council meetings, open for observation but not interactive.
Yes.
Great, thank you. With regards to the public transit feasibility plan, says to be ready by September of 2025. What are our next steps after that, and do we have any budget items? I'm too impatient to wait till the end of March. Are there any budget items for public transit this year, or does that have to wait for the plan to be completed and then for councils to provide any votes?
I do believe we did budget something in there, but it was more of a smaller amount to carry us through, because obviously the significance of implementing a public transit system would require tendering and a whole implementation plan. And again, the two councils likely will have to vote on to what degree they want to implement. So once the report's delivered, staff is going to have to review as well too, so that we can make some recommendations to council on how we should proceed. If council accepts the report. So all that to say, likely there'll be no big dollars spent until into 26, 27, if council chooses to move forward with the process. We have budgeted, we have identified some money, and council can decide whether or not it's enough as part of the process. Just, I guess, to look at some of the things that might come up before the end of the fiscal year.
Great, thank you on that. Public transit is very, very important to me. I hear it from my constituents frequently, heard it all throughout knocking on doors in the most recent election, and continue to hear it as I talk to people and meet people when I'm out and about in the community. So I'm very excited to see what comes from that. There's a lot of people really hoping that we will move forward on that. One final thing on the deer management summary. Obviously, you were at the rec board meeting that night and could not attend, but for staff who were there, is there any sort of summary that's different than what we've already discussed here in council chambers, or is there an overview or a replay of the presentation that is available online?
Yeah, there was a virtual link. I don't know if the presentation was recorded. We presented on our deer management strategy and how that came to be, and then our partnerships through the hunt and how the hunt is going. We also did discuss the challenges that we're having at this point in time. Feed Nova Scotia spoke about the impact of the program to their Hunters Helping the Hungry program, and then Dow presented on their research findings. On what they're finding in the internal organs and also what they're finding in the deer stomach. So that was really quite interesting as well. But I don't believe that the presentation was recorded.
Oh, that is unfortunate. I had to miss that meeting that night, but I was looking forward to trying to get there and learn some of what was happening. Thank you.
Thank you. I would have loved to have been there too, but we were at the rec, Mr. Dolter and I. So was the response positive or?
Yeah, I think most people in the room already had a general idea on kind of the hunt and what we were doing, but we're really interested in sort of the impact on things. So Dal was able to provide a lot of context, and Feed Nova Scotia was able to provide a lot of context on the benefits of the hunt that they're seeing. So I'd say generally it was pretty positive, but we did discuss sort of the challenges that we're currently facing with the hunt and our limited ability to kind of expand the hunt at this time.
Thank you very much for that. Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Yes, thank you very much. I too was not able to make it. I had a conflict of another meeting. That's unfortunate. I was looking forward to attending that. As far as just the public transport, just want to ask about Arcadis. They're a very, 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 very large corporation with many, many, many employees, international, if not national, if not international. it must be felt that they must do large projects for large cities. What's their track record for small towns?
Well,
it's a totally different scale. It's like
I think, like
totally apples and oranges. So
I think they've got a lot of experience with smaller communities as well too, which is, as you say, represents different challenges because you don't have the, you don't have the same network or the same tax base or, the same number of riders. So I think that they do have experience in, both the large and small communities, and I think they through the consultation process, they'll understand some of the additional complexities that we're dealing with, which is a very spread out population that still requires public transportation. So again, you're not driving through large mass neighborhoods, particularly when you get into the county, and that presents a whole different dynamic that they'll have to propose on. But they do have the experience to be able to to determine what best works, and I think they'll be able to to shed some light on a solution for sure.
Yeah, and that's all I'm looking for, is to make sure it's relevant, highly relevant to our particular situation. The other thing is, two other things. The solar project, just a comment, I know that this study is going to look at, as far as return on investment, lifespan, maintenance, and all that. The figures that I have seen so far to date, I wasn't that impressed with the return on investment. And so I just want to make a comment. This thing has to be a very solid win for us, no pun intended. I know it's not wind energy, but it's got to have a bright future, if it's going to work for me, because I just don't want to see something that, okay, it gives us a 5% return on investment. It's got to be a lot bigger than that. This has to be a game changer. So I'm just putting that out there. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but that's all I have to say.
I mean, again, at the end of the day, that's why we're going through the process. Council can determine whether or not, and the PPA agreement is a determining factor on how well this works as well. So until we have that in hand, it's hard to make a decision. At the end of the day, to be honest, I share your opinion, Deputy Mayor, that I expected to see some huge numbers. They're not huge numbers; they're good numbers, and there is a net benefit to a certain segment of the population. Certainly, we're not, it's nothing to, we're not going to do any major change as a result of the revenue we're going to get for this. It's not insignificant, but it's over a 25-year span.
Right.
So it does take some time to collect that in some, but it is a positive net return. There is contingencies in there in case things don't go, exactly as planned. And we do, we would be setting aside potential money for potential either reinvestment or decommissioning. Again, it'll be an interesting discussion when we get the final PPA in hand and the council's making a decision whether to move forward.
Right. I don't need to tell you just how, taxpayers' money and how we handle it and how we invest it and the return on that investment. In my mind, it has to be so that we don't find ourselves in any position at all where we have to put more money in order to save a project.
Yeah,
I'm really want to make sure this.
And we are, again, and that's one of in our due diligence, we are going to do further review of the business case to make sure there's nothing, the assumptions there make sense and everything else. We're with Cumberland, we're going to engage a third party to review. Again, and that's something that, council can use that information in order to make a final decision. The overall project, if everything works out as identified, it will not involve residents of Truro's money at this. Again, it will be borrowed funds, and the loan on those funds will be paid for by the project itself and the return from the project. So again, it appears to be fairly risk-free. The benefit, council can decide whether or not the benefit weighs the, has a proper return.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Dolter. The last comment I have, and actually, I was thinking about this, but a fellow councillor brought it up to me before the meeting, and I don't know if that councillor from Ward 3 wants me to mention her name, but anyways, it has to do with the Canadian flag. The Canadian flag didn't go up on Flag Day because, it was a problem. We had and I can understand that, and that's really unfortunate. But do you know that you just try to go to the store right now and buy a Canadian flag. The Macquarie's, I heard, had a whole bin full of them gone, right? Faster than fudge cookies. I mean, these things are out of the store. People are patriotic. They want to see the Canadian flag. And I believe that the town of Truro, and I'm just putting this out there for council, I'd like to see the Canadian flag fly out there. And as my fellow councillor suggested, maybe we need another flagpole for a permanent flagpole for the Canadian flag. I'm putting it out there. Maybe we could vote on it next time or consider it or something like that, because I think in these days in which, we're seeing some patriotic fever maybe, but I'm certainly proud to be a Canadian and I like to see the flag fly. End of story.
So, if I may, Madam Mayor, there is actually council direction and policy that says it's the municipal flag that we fly, other than at the police station, which does fly the Canadian flag. And I don't disagree with you, it's good to fly. The only thing from a flag protocol perspective, if we're flying municipal flag and the Canadian flag, we need to also fly the provincial flag. So again, that's one of those things that if you want to follow proper etiquette, we can fly our own flag, but when you get more than one, then there is a protocol you have to follow. So I don't have an issue. We installed the ceremonial flagpole shortly after I got here to address all the ceremonial flags we do fly. So if council wants to, during our budget process, we can talk about putting up 2 more flagpoles and do that. Yeah, certainly.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to our Corporate Services report by our Director of Corporate Services, Tara Russell. And as we come to our end of our fiscal year, I think to myself, is she dreaming of budgets?
Living the dream. Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. The financial report provided to Council provides an overview of the town's operations up to the end of January 2025. Starting with revenue, total revenue to the end of January of $37 million, or 98% of the annual budget, consisting of property taxes that are fully billed at 100% of budget. Deed transfer tax is above budget at 164%. Taxes grant in lieu have been received. The provincial property amount was received in February, and it's not reflected in the report that you got. Revenue services to other municipalities continue to flow based on billings. Revenue from services offered is strong despite the stadium opening later than expected in the budget. Public Works is at 182% due to sewer lateral revenue that was not budgeted. Under other revenue, interest earned is higher than budget due to higher interest rates than expected for a result of 217% of budget. Miscellaneous is also outperforming budget by 192%. Just as a reminder, this line is budgeted conservatively and includes items such as small donations, surplus of small equipment sales, EV charging station revenue, etc. Government transfers are consistent with the quarterly billing cycle except for the other account, which is at 401%, reflecting additional unbudgeted grants that were applied for and received this year. Total expenses to the end of January is $29 million, or 77% of the annual budget, which is slightly lower than where we'd expect to be at this point in the year. The following details some of the bigger variances to budget. So under legislative, the other expense account is over budget at 118% because of the retirement expenses for Mayor Mills' send-off. General administration, other expenses continue to be slightly higher than budget at 107% due to increase in insurance premiums, unbudgeted safety requirements, and other professional fees. Regional events reflects the commitment to the rec for the Nova Scotia Stampede. Fire services is at 89% overall due to the payment of the water utility charge. All other accounts are in line. Transportation and environment, streets and sidewalks is at 111%, reflecting expenditures during the construction season, the annual gravel requirements, and the increased cost of traffic control. Overall, transportation and environment is on budget. Parks and recreation and culture, the Rath Eastlink Community Center is slightly above budget at 102%, which includes full funding for the year, as well as emergency lighting expense. Overall, we continue to operate well within budget. I've added a new procurement section to the report listing the tenders awarded in the month. For the month of January, there were 4 tenders awarded. There is a correction to the list. The pump track should have said it was awarded to the Canadian Ramp Company based out of Ontario. So the following list of tenders were awarded in January. The pump track, again, should have been Canadian Ramp Company for $250,000. Dismantling Racism RFP for Waking the Unconscious for $74,500. Snow Guards to Global Construction for just under $10,000. And the Year in Review RFP to Advocate Printing for around $5,000. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you very much. I don't see, oh, I do see one question. Councillor Graham?
I actually have two questions.
Okay.
The first one, I'm wondering about, under the procurement, did we invest at a 100% of those amounts, or are some of them in partnership with other levels of government in the form of grants or?
I believe that the pump track, I believe we had some grants for.
It's actually almost 100% funded through ACOA. So it's the last portion of the ACOA or the rail yard master plan.
Okay.
So that's the final portion of that funding that's going to be expended against that project.
It would be helpful to know that information when we're looking at that. To me, when I read it, I thought we invested that total 250,000, 74, like those are huge numbers that,
Sure.
If that's an easy calculation for you to provide for us, it would be appreciated.
We can do that, but just a reminder, that was so that is part of the current capital plan. It was identified at that time as being ACOA money. So just so you're aware, but we can do that, but yeah, that was and that's why these are for council's information, because these are all previously approved expenditures. Yeah, we could do the other three expenditures, I think, are all 100% funded by us. Yeah, when we award, we can look at a breakdown if not already previously informed, yes.
Thank you. It just as a point of interest, I think. My second question is, I'm looking, and it's a two-part question. I'm looking at the under revenue taxes, property taxes general, and we show that as 100%, the very first line. So we budgeted $28,452,000. The actuals are $28,392,000, but we're showing it at 100%. Why is that?
I'd have to check the math, but I believe it's rounding. It's probably 99 point.
Okay. All right.
It's not material. It's not material. It's close enough that it's 100%.
Well, yeah. The second question is, everybody has seen a significant increase in their assessments this year. I was wondering, have you been able to figure out what that will mean in our tax revenue?
For the budget year?
Yes.
Next year?
Yeah, what will we be, do we know yet what we will be working with?
Yes, we do.
Is that?
It's not public information until council approves the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Russell. I don't see any more questions. They're all saving them for the budget deliberations. I can feel it. It's all good. Thank you very much for your report. Lois Curry, our fire chief, is not with us today, so putting on his fire chief hat is Mr. Dolter, so he's going to present the report. So take it away.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. So the Truro Fire Service received 80 alarms in February, broken down the following. So fires 3, motor vehicle collisions 5, fire alarm activations 13, carbon monoxide alarms 2, medical calls 54, fuel spill 1, elevator rescue 1, and power wires down 1. The fire inspectors report inspections, there were 7. Truro Mall inspections, there were 34. Follow-up inspections 10. Actions to take orders 3. Alcohol and gaming approvals 1. Fire investigations 1. And fire drill, Millbrook First Nations, there was 1. So the fire inspector has worked this month at the Truro Mall, and the team at the Truro Mall, along with their stores, have been diligent and cooperative. Again, this is part of the commercial review that we're required to do. Meetings were also held with Natural Resources as we continue to navigate the fire smart and wilderness preparedness. And again, related to budget, we are looking at additional expenditures to support our wildfire response as well with the province. That and fire training, the firefighters trained on fire extinguishers and first in attacks. So that is the chief's report, respectfully submitted.
Thank you so much. I just want to comment and say that on Friday, the African Nova Scotian luncheon was held. What a special day when I walked in and saw the George Jones Truro Bucket Company were sitting on the desk. And the unveiling of the plaque and the building being renamed for George Jones with the commemorative coin. And it was a very, very special day. And as councillor, we were very proud to be there. We had a guest speaker, Reverend Dr. Leonard Anderson. And if no one has ever heard him speak before, it was very powerful and very moving. I asked him afterwards if he'd stay behind and talk with me about a few things, and he graciously did that, which I'm eternally grateful for. I do want to once again give a shout out to Nevin Jackson for the dedicated hard work that he provided in finding the history of George Jones and making this happen. And to Jude Clyke, who was there as well, and for all his part in bringing the community together. And it was a very, very special day. I think we can all agree, Mr. Dolter, that it was.
Yeah, in addition to, Madam Mayor, Slim Fisher, who was the deputy fire chief
Yes.
for the brigade, Slim started off the process, and then the current deputy chief, Bentley Rice, took this up in conjunction with sorry, Councillor McGrath. I had a seniors moment there, as well. Moving this forward. So again, it's been good. The brigade did a lot. Certainly, the Truro Fire Service, I think, is better for recognizing this as well. And again, as we get the planning for the unveiling of the name on the building and some other, and the plaque that's going to be outside the building, again, welcome the community to come out and celebrate with us as we get that long-awaited honor and highly necessary honor put forward.
I think they're going to ask some schools to join us that day, and Councillor McGrath had some very poignant words to speak as well that day, so it was very good. Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and of course echoing your comments, it was a special day, and I would certainly go see the Reverend Dr. Anderson speak again anytime. I'm an atheist, but I would go to his church. My goodness, what a speaker. Had a fantastic chat with him as well that day. To the point of the report, why we're here, I just noticing the medical calls on the report, and unfortunately Chief Curry isn't here to answer, but I wanted to just kind of bring to council attention and to public attention, the 54 calls represent 67.5% of the fire brigade's calls in the month of February. That is a significant amount, and Mr. Dolter, I wanted to ask you if the town, if staff have looked into reaching out to Minister Ritzie regarding the impact to fire responding to all these medical calls. At the fire brigade gala at the end of January, the chief spoke and he mentioned sort of being gap fillers. And I feel like the medical calls are sort of a gap that we are filling in lieu of the province and EHS, which, as we all know, are overworked and strained. But I just have concerns about that, us picking up that strain and wanting to see the firefighters be able to focus on their primary mandate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've had some extensive discussion about our response on this and talked to the chief about it. We have, if I recall correctly, we have had previous correspondence with the province on this issue, and they've been telling us that they are looking at revamping and enhancing the response for emergency services. So it's an ongoing discussion, and it's one of those difficult quandaries to get into because again, some of these calls are not critical, but unfortunately, as the chief keeps telling me, you never know when what would be a routine calls turns into something more critically. And when we have the resources, we have chosen to respond at this point. But this is, again, one of the discussions that, we need to talk to the province about what their response is going to be, and then, have a discussion on our level of service that we can and will provide.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wondering about, you read the words fire smart. Can you just explain what that means? Can you explain that? I know it's not your report, but you see that line where it says navigate fire smart and wildfire preparedness.
Yeah, so that Fire Smart itself is a program that the provincial government has put forward on how people can prepare their properties properly to deal with the potential for fire, which includes, clearing brush and debris away from their homes, about, just making smart decisions when it comes to their own properties and how they deal with their landscaping and the controlling of the vegetation within in and around their properties. So that's something that we're going to do some social media pieces as well on that to encourage our homeowners to to do their part in trying to make their properties as safe as possible and minimize the risk of fire.
Yeah, excellent. Here I go again. In particular, for those that are backed on woodlands, properties that are backed on woodlands, for all of us, but particularly for those, I think it might be important to have a bit of a campaign during these dry summer periods to make sure that there's no, fire debris around or potential fire starters. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next up is our Director of Jason Fox for Planning and Development, his report. So take it away, Mr. Fox.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to take this moment to introduce you to our new planner, Jacob McPherson. He's in the gallery today. Jacob joins us from Municipality District of Lunenburg, so we managed to steal him away from there. So, Jacob's actually from Truro, so happy to have him back in Truro, and hope you'll join me in welcoming him back home. Also, just a little bit about Jacob. He does have a master's degree in planning from Dalhousie. He also has an undergraduate in geography from Mount A. So, lucky to have him. And yeah, that's it for that.
Welcome.
Okay, in terms of the planning report for the month, planning applications, we actually have 6 applications on file. 1 at 656 Yonge Street, 1 at Rexdale Ford and Marshland, 1 at 60 Golf, 1 at 730 Yonge Street, 1 at 737 Roby Street, 1 at 201 Callback. And just so you're aware as well, we've actually had another 4 applications come in the past couple weeks, that are at the initial stages of discussions, and we'll be expecting formal applications from them shortly, so that's why they're not showing up here. So it continues to be a very, very busy time. Site plan approval applications, we have 2 applications there, 1 at 45 Duke and 1 at 161 McLean Street. Building statistics for the month of February 2024, we were at $13,728,842. For February 2025, we're at $3,210,438. In terms of bylaw enforcement activity, we had 34 active files in February. 9 of those have been resolved, respectfully submitted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fox. I see a couple questions. Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Mr. Fox. Just, I understand that we have a lot of these development agreement applications coming in. Looking forward to seeing what comes to Planning Advisory Committee. Just a quick question on the site plan approval applications. I had asked you on a few previous occasions about whether or not we were able to navigate the privacy requirements and be able to put those online for public consumption. Have we been able to navigate those barriers? Do we foresee that being added?
I haven't had a chance to get to that yet, but I will look at that again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Graham.
I have 2 questions. Planning Advisory Committee met, was it last week or the week before, and we discussed having the applicants at 60 Golf and 373 Roby Street host public information sessions. Has there been movement on that? Do you know if they're intending to do so? Do you have any details?
I don't have any details yet. Both of those would be Carla's files, so the other planner. So I'll have to have a conversation with her, and I believe she is working with them, but I don't have any details yet.
Okay. Thank you. Also, previously, we had a development on Inglis Place. It's no longer here. I was wondering, I've received quite a few questions and interest about that development, but can you update us on what happened to that application?
Yeah, that's one of the ones we expect to have back in the next few weeks. The reasoning why it's been removed here is because it was actually supposed to proceed to a public hearing, but the applicant has ran some numbers on his business plan and his pro forma for the development, and it didn't sort of warrant. There's some issues, I guess, with the costing and everything working out, and to be a profitable enterprise. So what he's done is gone away, and I think he's reworking the proposal, and it was substantial enough that it would be a significant change to the plans that were submitted, so he kind of has to go back through to step one.
Thank you. Just back to the other public information sessions that we're hoping to have. How will residents find out about those if they are indeed going to go forward?
The only avenue we would be using would likely be the town's website. We would put that on there, and also maybe like social media as well.
Would there be a when we do surveys, it goes to the 150 closest residents? Is that a possibility in this case?
It's a possibility. There would be a cost associated with that, and that only goes to the the property owners, doesn't actually go to the residents. So we tend to rely more on the signage and the mailouts for the public hearing and for getting people involved in the planning process. The separate information meetings would generally be more the responsibility of the property owner, the developer. So, I mean, we could do that, but I think it would be an additional cost, and it's not something we've ever done in the past. We usually just rely on social media and the website, or to get the word out, and hopefully people will attend.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Yes, I have one question. You know, I get questioned on this location more than any other location in town, and that's at the corner of Pleasant and Prince Street, which used to be the old laundromat building. And more people ask me about that than any other building. When's it going to complete it? And I know that we don't have the full, or maybe we do, the full skinny on this, but if you could just, do you have any updates on that so that people can be aware of the fact when it will be completed? I hear some ugly rumors, and I just want to hear if...
I don't have an update. I haven't heard any rumors, so...
Okay.
As far as I know, we're waiting for the construction season to start again.
Okay, well, we all wait with great bated anticipation that it might be completed. Thank you.
We never said it was dull here, Deputy Mayor. We never said it was dull. You'll find that out firsthand, Mr. McPherson. Good times here at the Town Hall. Okay, I see no more further questions, so now we're going to move it on to Chief McNeil, who's going to give us a Truro Police report for today. Chief?
Thanks, Mayor. February's report is as follows. We had 34 traffic offenses for the month, issued 186 motor vehicle citations under the Motor Vehicle Act, 23 road safety check stops, 15 noise or bylaw type complaints, 7 impaired driving investigations, 1 drug investigation, 89 other provincial acts such as Trespass Act or Liquor Control Act, 53 mental health well-being calls, 24 violation of court order investigations, 7 crimes against person, 11 assaults, 24 thefts, 16 property damage or disturbance calls, 2 break-and-enters, 6 frauds or forgeries, 55 suspicious person or vehicle calls, 30 alarms, 82 other general calls for police assistance, for a total of 665 calls. 200 resulted in charges. There were 75 parking tickets issued and 44 speeding offenses on various streets, and the Community Enhancement Division officers' reports attached. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you very much, Chief. I don't see any questions. I do know that you've got some long service awards coming up in Halifax, so I think that I'd like to know who they are if you can get a hold of me this week. And I think Deputy Mayor may be attending in my place because I've got a date conflict there. So thank you very much for your report. Moving on, Public Works, presented by Director Andrew McKinnon. You're up, Mr. McKinnon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, attached is the Public Works Monthly Report for February of 2025. Engineering summary: during the month of February, Public Works staff continued working on asset management projects and presented the first asset management presentation to Town Council. Staff are preparing drafts of the department's operating and capital budgets for the 25-26 budget process. Staff received the final draft of the active transportation plan for Harborside Engineering. Harborside Engineering will be presenting the active transportation plan to Town Council at the March Committee of the Whole meeting. As a lead up to the Extended Producer's Responsibility, or EPR system, that has now been enacted by the province, textiles are being dropped from our list of fiber recycles stream of our four-stream curbside collection program on March 31st. Communications have begun, and staff will prepare a full briefing note for Town Council for the full impacts of the EPR system for the April council meeting. Public Works summary: transportation crews have been busy with street patching and snow and ice control. They also continue to assign maintenance, downtown maintenance, and safety training. Environmental Services crews continue the water and sewer maintenance activities, which included hydrant maintenance, catch basin manhole maintenance, pump maintenance, which includes shoveling out catch basins and fire hydrants. Crews also repaired 2 water main breaks, renewed 1 sanitary lateral, and continued to work on safety training. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you very much. And I see a question from Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your report, sir. Just a quick question on the street patching and such. I mentioned to, I believe you, Mr. Dolter, on Friday, the large potholes that had opened up on East Prince Street, or the east end of Prince Street, rather. And I've heard from a lot of people throughout the town and in the surrounding region who travel that route frequently. Do we have any indication when something can be done? And I understand that it's winter. I think it was -10 when I came down here today at lunchtime. Obviously, the cold patching and such is difficult, but do we have an ETA on when those are going to be repaired? There's just a lot of concern about possible damage and crashes.
I don't have an ETA on those ones specifically. I'll have to look into it and maybe email you back on that.
Okay, thank you. And then a question on, as we come up to budget and street recapitalization. I talked to somebody when Prince Street was repaved, I believe 2 summers ago now, and then last summer a property owner along that stretch had an issue with their sewer, and they found that if they had to, in order to do any repairs, they would have to rip up the newly paved road, and that would be at their cost. Have we considered when these recapitalization projects are planned, reaching out to homeowners and just saying, hey, this is coming up, it may be worthwhile to have your sewer inspected just as a, precaution, because if they find an issue after the total of street repaving, they could be on the hook for a fair amount of money, whereas if they can get it done before or during that recapitalization, it could probably be much more beneficial for everybody, because I certainly wouldn't want to see one of our brand new streets torn up and patched within a year or two of just having been done.
Yeah, that's been a long-standing issue with us, and in the past, we've attempted that and sent out communications to people in advance and advise them if we're doing a full street rebuild that if you do it while our construction is on, it's a half-price deal too, because we don't have to put in the full charges from reinstatement of the asphalt and curb if we're going to do it anyways in capital project. Mm-hmm. We've never had much uptake on it, and then inevitably, even after we do the project, turns around that somebody comes and says their sewer's going, because nobody wants to admit they have a problem ahead of time until it's too late. And
yeah,
it's unfortunate. I mean, it's a very expensive undertaking for homeowners.
Yeah, well, for sure, and that's and especially in this affordability crisis we find ourselves in, anything that we can do to proactively help homeowners save some money, or property owners rather save some money when we're doing these projects, I'd like to be able to see us do that.
Absolutely, and for our asset management, we don't want to see a street cut right after we repave it either. So
no,
yes,
for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor.
Just wondering about Willow and Arthur. I haven't been there for a couple of days, but last time I passed through there was a bit of a missing pavement, et cetera, and it can get quite deep and nasty pretty quick. So what's the plan for that?
Well, that's a bad location, and our guys are staying on top of it at least once a week, if not a couple times a week, just putting asphalt planings in it. That's all we can do at this time of year. And hopefully, now that we're rolled into March, there might be an asphalt plant in the city open that we might be able to go get a couple loads of hot asphalt, so.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'll report back on that.
The other thing is that no-name lane. I don't know if it has a name or not between Cobequid Street and Willow Street. It's a mess, and what's the state of that road? Like, who's responsible for it, et cetera? And I know it's not supposed to have any civic addresses on it or whatever. Anyways, it's getting more used as more development goes on Cobequid. There's more people using that street. And I'm just wondering what the future is for that. It's not a street. I mean, it's a
No,
lane.
it is not a town street. It's never been built to our standards. It's been unfortunately just patched. The odd time that we've paved in the area, the contractor would just spread some old asphalt in there to get rid of it, and it's property that we inherited from the Dominion Atlantic Railway, so I always just call it the DAR road.
Okay.
And it's not built to our standards, so we have no intentions of paving it unless it's built to our standard. You may recall that we did propose to town council a number of years ago to try to sell it to a private developer and remove the asset from our books so we wouldn't have to look after it, and we failed in that attempt.
Okay, well, I'm just going to suggest that it's one of those things that maybe we should be discussing at budget time. It's getting more and more traffic, and I think a solution needs to be some sort of, better solution than just kind of, trying to grade it every once in a while or whatever. I guess I'll leave it at that.
And it's not really needed in our system, and it would be good if we could sell the land to a private developer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Our final report today is Parks, Recreation, and Culture by our Director, Ashley Sims. Ms. Sims?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. General cleanup and maintenance continue across downtown, parks, and trails. Outdoor winter activities remain highly popular, with hundreds of residents and visitors using our outdoor facilities daily. February has been an excellent month for cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, winter mountain biking, and fat biking. As we transition into March and warmer temperatures, trail grooming will come to an end, and we anticipate closing the Caldwell Road Heartland Ice Surface on March 17th, weather permitting. The Colchester Legion Stadium saw heavy usage in February, with 302 hours of ice time recorded. Our free sticks and pucks drop-in sessions remain a favorite, and open skate sessions continue to be well attended. The town of Truro's tree inventory is ongoing, with data being recorded in the town's ArcGIS field maps. To date, 667 trees have been cataloged. The town's Urban Tree Committee presented a plan to the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee to mitigate the impact of the hemlock woolly algid, HWA. The strategy includes staff training, public education, awareness initiatives, and tree treatment in the lower park this spring. Our community drop-in programs are ongoing. For program details, please contact the Douglas Street Recreation Center or visit the town's website. For the second year, we hosted Active Aging Adventures and Crafternoons. These 6-week programs introduce participants to various activities. Feedback indicated that many seniors struggle to connect with activity-based clubs and societies, and our programs have helped bridge that gap by introducing them to local instructors and community opportunities. The Colchester Legion Stadium hosted one of 3 drop-in Learn to Skate sessions, which was a success. Due to the strong interest, we will be launching a 6-week Learn to Skate program in March. The Truro Winter Long John Festival took place on February 14th to the 17th, with 2 events rescheduled to February 23rd due to the weather. This festival engaged numerous community partners and encouraged residents to embrace winter through challenges, community hikes, skating, sledding, fat biking, and more. We extend our gratitude to our partners and sponsors, including Downtown Truro Partnership, The Rec, Stamfields, Truro Forest School, Parkland Truro, Shanix, Truro Legion, and the Sikh Wilderness Accommodations. The town of Truro, in collaboration with African Nova Scotian Community Strategy Committee, hosted the African Heritage Month kickoff and reception on February 1st, along with an elders luncheon on February 28th. Both events were very well attended. Throughout February, the town of Truro recognized and celebrated African Heritage Month, National Flag of Canada Day, Heritage Day honoring Mi'kmaq activist Nora Bernard. Respectfully submitted.
Sounds like a slow month. Thank you, Director Sims. I see we have a question from Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Mayor Hinton. Through you to Ms. Sims. The Legion Stadium, someone mentioned to me there's no heaters in the dressing rooms and the washrooms, they said, but is that true, and what's going to be happening in regards to that?
Yeah, construction is still taking place while we're operating, so we're working with the contractors on that right now.
Okay, so do you have any timeline when maybe it'll be completed?
I'm hoping sooner than later.
Yeah, the heating for the change rooms and the washroom actually come off the ice plant.
Okay, so
So
it's part of,
that portion of that project hasn't been completed yet.
yep, thank you.
Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Sims, for your report. I was able to partake in some of those, a lot of really great events that we had during February. Just a quick question about the Civic Square ice surface. You mentioned that, anticipate closing it on March 17th, weather permitting. This has been a particularly cold winter, an actual winter, if you will. And again, I mentioned coming down here at lunch, it was still -10 despite the sun being out and shining. If the weather remains cold right up through, do we anticipate that we could extend the season of the rink, or do we see it coming down March 17th regardless?
I expect it will be coming down March 17th regardless, just for the fact it's more to do with the sun. So you will already start seeing on some afternoons, we will close the ice surface just based the sun warms that ice surface, and the plant can't keep up with that sun. It's spring sun, so it's welcomed, but it does get challenging.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you very much. Are there any further questions for any of the reports presented today, Council? Seeing none, I do see Councillor Talbot.
Yeah, I do have one for Mr. Fox, and I was at a session last week, and I was approached about the construction site on the Esplanade and a lot of pellets kind of strewn across the property, and also whether or not there'd be, if they're finished, if the parking could be opened up. But I was speaking with the CAO, and I believe, Mike, you told me that the company is actually running that space, so it's really under their control.
Yeah, we are leasing those spaces to the contractor, again, because they have limited room to maneuver. We do recognize that there's not a lot of material within the fenced area at this moment, but it's difficult for him to pull the fence back and then extend it again once people get used to it. He is paying for each of the spots. So again, it's one of, we've asked him as soon as he's prepared to do so to pull it back, and we'll reduce his leasing amount too. So we're encouraging him to withdraw the fence as soon as possible, because we do recognize the demand for those parking areas. As far as the pallets go, we can talk to them. I mean, it's not unlike any other construction site where there are pallets on there. We can talk and to make sure it's tidy where it is in a very visible location. So, we can have that discussion with them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further questions, I'd call for a motion to accept all the committee reports today. Councillor Fleming, Councillor McGrath, thank you very much. All those in favor, please say aye. Contrary minded, reports are accepted and motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 7, questions by members. I haven't been asking many questions by members lately, but I do have 4 items that I want to mention today. As you know, I've been organizing housing meetings in my office, and we had another one on February the 4th. There have been issues from residents about the encampment in the county that have permeated into the town, causing concern for some residents. I want to thank the Truro Police for addressing these issues. At our meeting that day, Chief McNeil was present, joined by Staff Sergeant Rose of the RCMP, Mayor Blair of Colchester, and her CAO Dan Troke, Matt Forrest from Souls Harbor, and Connection Church. Our CAO, Mike Dolder, had a previous appointment. He's been briefed on everything that's happened, so he's totally aware and had some input for the meeting that we brought forward. Sarah McCurdy from United Way was present, as well as members of the Truro Housing Outreach, and Matt Forrest from Souls Harbor. As we identify issues on housing, they are brought forward at the meeting. I'm going to be inviting to the next meeting Ministers Dave Ritchie and Scott Armstrong to discuss housing. There's no further update right now on the former site at the old hospital, except something will be going there. We do know that. Also, Matt Forrest has told us from Souls Harbor that they've applied for funding to extend their time to be open, which is supposed to close the end of April. They have never yet been at full capacity and are seeing about 18 people per night. So I just wanted to update you on that. I also want to congratulate the Colchester Sexual Assault Center, who will be celebrating their 25th anniversary, as they provide and continue to provide wonderful services to residents in our community, all free of charge. They're having a march to end sexual violence on Saturday, the 29th of March at 2 p.m., leaving on Commercial Street by the Bank of Montreal and heading to the Farmers Market, where there'll be a guest speaker, music, and a food truck. And to find out about the walk, to donate or pledge, please contact the Sexual Assault Center. Also, I want to congratulate the Marigold Cultural Center, who has been nominated for Venue of the Year for the East Coast Music Awards. We all know how special the Marigold is to our community and the value it brings. So let's keep our fingers crossed for good news when that is announced coming up in May. And I want to shout out to International Women's Day, which is March the 8th. Mayor of Colchester, Christine Blair, and I made a video which is going to be airing tomorrow for the rest of the week on the town website, and will also be linked to the municipality. I want to say a very happy International Women's Day to the talented women in the town of Truro, to the Truro staff, our female directors, and my two colleagues, Councillor Graham and Councillor Pryor. And the three women that keep me smiling every day when I come into work, Stephanie Rowe, Michaela Carroll, and Nikki Gillis. They're wonderful, and I couldn't do this job without them. We need to celebrate women for the valuable contributions they make. So happy International Women's Day, and sisters truly are doing it for themselves. Councillors, further questions from members? Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, I'd like to echo your comments about the Marigold. I was lucky enough to be able to catch the play Lucky Me on Friday night. Really well done. I would have recommended that other people go to watch it, but I understand that Saturday was the last day for that run. So if you didn't catch it, unlucky you, I guess. But happy to see the Marigold getting that recognition. With regards to the question is actually about the biodiversity and some alterations or potential alterations to the minimum standards bylaw regarding lawns and lawn upkeep. Now, this is something that has come before council a few times. Councillor Fleming and Deputy Mayor Thomas have had constituents who felt they were being harassed about their lawns. They were trying to renaturalize the lawn. I've had, when we brought up last time at council, I had some of my constituents reach out to me, from the Dalhousie Agricultural Campus, who want to be involved if there's going to be a committee set up to review the bylaws in order to provide guidance on, renaturalization and biodiversity. So, Madam Mayor, I wanted to make a motion in order to support biodiversity and further the town goals regarding emissions and climate change mitigation, that we set up a special committee to provide recommendations on updating bylaw B160-010, the minimum building and housing standards, to allow wildflowers, naturalized yards, and to provide guidance to bylaw staff on how to navigate those new standards.
Thank you. So Councillor McGrath has made that motion. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Fleming has seconded. Do we have discussion on the motion? Councillor Graham.
It just has caught me a little off guard. I haven't had time to think about this issue very much. I don't have a lot of information on it. I don't feel like at first glance it seems like a really good idea, but I don't know how to.
Councillor, would you ever consider maybe tabling that motion, and maybe could you bring it back for the next meeting to give us a chance to look into it? Would you be open to that? Oh, I've muted. Sorry.
Thank you. I can table the motion. We can bring it up at the next meeting, but this is probably the third council meeting that this has been brought up at, and I mentioned specifically at Property Standards on Thursday that I would be raising this motion. I am prepared to run it today if other councilors are willing to support, but if more time is needed, we can do that. But I hate to delay too much, as with so many things, when the sun starts coming out, we run into no mow May. At what point is, I would like to see things moving on that this year, because it has been something that we've discussed, several months ago and continue to discuss. And I would like to see us be able to make some progress on.
Okay, Councillor Talbot?
Oh, excuse me. I think the idea has some merit, but like Councillor Graham, I don't really feel I know enough about it. Could we ask staff to give us a bit of a report on what's happening in the province, how it's regulated? Because if done right, it's probably a very good thing. If done wrong, it's probably a very bad thing. And I don't know. I'd just like to see how it's being regulated in other municipal units.
Thank you. Councillor McGrath?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also am no expert, which is why I would recommend that the committee have a specific makeup of people from the agricultural campus, whether that be students in landscaping or teachers in the landscaping. Really, the idea here of setting up the special committee is to get expert opinion on how to navigate this. Because I'm not an arborist, I'm not an agriculturalist, and I'm not even sure if that's a real word, but this is not my specialty. We should be listening to the experts. I've often sat here and said that we need data-driven and evidence-based decision-making, and setting up this committee would allow us to do that, get those expert opinions, and guide us. And I do think that, perhaps bylaw staff might be part of that committee so that they can understand how things are going. I would leave it up to Mr. Fox whether or not he would want staff committed to that. But honestly, I would not want to be in the bylaw officer's shoes saying, well, is this derelict, unmaintained lawn, or is this natural meadow and wildflowers? I know for my lawn, I've gotten rid of grass. I've got hostas that the deer are very thankful for. We have creeping thyme that the deer are not as thankful for, as well as lupins and tulips and lamb's ear. So a lot of biodiversity. I see a lot of bees in my yard, and it would be really great if we had some expert opinion on how to allow more people to do that. People who have larger properties who want to see more biodiversity. When it comes to climate change mitigation, monocultures are very dangerous for us, and I think it's something very important that we should be looking at.
Okay, Councillor Graham?
It really does sound like an appropriate thing to do. Mr. Dalter, can you advise us on the protocol or process required to just set up a committee? It seems can we just do that?
I mean, well, council can, and there's no terms of reference at this point. I do have a little bit of concern about the committee going off and making some recommendations, which may be very good recommendations, but difficult for us to enforce, because at the end of the day, our staff is going to have to, I won't use the term police because it's not policing, but enforce whatever bylaw were to come in place. And I think anything that gets discussed needs to be done in conjunction with our ability to enforce and determine, I think we talked about during the property standards, what is a natural or biodiverse lawn versus someone who just is not practicing good lawn care or mowing their grass. Although I don't want to commit development planning to doing a staff report, I do think it is important to do some level of jurisdictional scan to see what is out there prior to the committee, so that we can find some best practices in place. Now, that doesn't say council couldn't decide on that committee, but I think it's critical to know what is out there as well, because I don't think we would be the first municipality to do this. But I don't, I'm reluctant for us to run down this alley without knowing what's at the other end, because again, I don't want us, we've got one bylaw enforcement officer, and if he's running around checking out lawns, because we do know there are many neighbors that will not accept that it's a biodiverse lawn. It just looks shaggy to them. So again, in addition to the practices, the bylaw and all that, there's a huge public information component that has to be done in order to prepare people for this to happen, so that they know that long grass is actually a biodiverse lawn as opposed to what everybody thinks it is. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It probably has some merit. It's just that I would like to know kind of what we're wading into, and before the committee is established, I would like to know what other municipalities are doing and what problems they're having, so that we can be prepared when the committee is formed to help guide the process, as opposed to having to have decisions made and us seem like we're working against the process simply because best practices says that it's going to be difficult to enforce. So, I don't know. I'm looking at Mr. Fox, and he's not prepared. I don't expect an answer from him. But I think we do. I do agree. I think we need to look at a staff report to come back to council and say, here's the things that we need to be. Now, council can agree to the committee at this point, but just from a staff perspective, I don't think we can do too much with it until we are able to gather some data and provide a report back to council.
Councillor Talbot.
Yeah, and I was going to say that public education piece is huge, because, there's been a movement the last number of years about leaving your leaves for the bees. And my neighbors think I'm lazy. You won't break your lawn.
Sorry, and something as simple, and Mr. McKinnon talked about it in the fall when people wanted to pick up, wanted all their leaves and bagged and everything else, and we said, why don't you remow your leaves into your lawn and it'll act as natural compost? You had a lot of people that were, thought that was the strangest recommendation in the world, but again, it's based on a fact-based and science-based approach. So again, the public education portion of this committee can do its work, but we've got to educate the public what to expect and have our bylaw officer prepared for what it is, and we have to write a really good bylaw that we can realistically enforce, right?
Thank you, Mr. Dalter. Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 100% agree with both of you that the education piece is going to be critical. There are, as you mentioned about the leaves, and people always say leave the leaves, and people say, oh, as the councillor mentioned, people think I'm lazy for not raking my leaves. But really, it is in the best interest of your yards and your lawns and the biodiversity to leave the leaves, to let the grass grow a little bit longer so that it's not burning out in the hot summer sun and requiring a lot of water. Also, when we look at flooding within the town, if you are planting the right plants, native wildflowers, those will help mitigate some of that, at least localized flooding around your property. And I don't disagree with a lot of what's been said. It's not going to be easy, which is why I would think that our bylaw staff should be involved in that committee, either to help the committee toward something that is enforceable. If we can get a staff report on the jurisdictional guidance, what others are doing, I would certainly welcome that. Basically, all soldiers to the fight welcome in helping us to address this.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Yeah, I just want to warn us all that doing this, it has to be of an intelligent design. You just can't say, okay, I'm going to let it be biodiverse and let everything go. You're going to have a patch of either weedy grasses or just weeds. And, we have to understand that we have a very serious deer problem that will eat anything and most plants, but there are some, and this is possible to do. But I want to also, there was a craze and still kind of on about no mow May. Well, no mow May has left nothing but dandelions across the town. And the thing about dandelions, they're not a pollinated plant. It's wind pollinated. And so bees don't really like it. And they don't do a lot of visitation to them. It's wind pollinated driven. It's not pollinated by insects. So, and all we've managed to do is make a huge difference to dandelions. And I'm in my vegetable garden and I can't keep up with the massive dandelions that grow into my thing. So it has to be an intelligent design when we do these things, and as long as we approach it that way with a committee that's aware and put something good together, and that people are willing to follow it, and it takes a lot of maintenance. We're not looking at people wanting to get away from maintenance. This is more maintenance intensive than just planting some bluegrass and mowing it once a week. So I just want people to be aware of that. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor McGrath, there's a motion on the floor. You're prepared to keep that motion on the floor?
I am prepared to keep that motion on the floor,
It's
Madam Mayor.
seconded by Councillor Fleming. Are we ready for a vote? Yes, read the motion again, please, Councillor McGrath.
On my microphone. Thank you. In order to support biodiversity and further the town goals regarding emissions and climate change mitigation, that the town set up a special committee to provide recommendations on updating bylaw B160-010, the minimum building and housing standards bylaw, to allow wildflowers, naturalized yards, and to provide guidance to bylaw staff on enforcing same.
Councillors, the motion has been read. All those in favor of supporting the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. I want to see the ayes again. How many support the motion? Okay, it's approved. Now, I would say that this is going to be a real work in motion to try to get this, the right kind of advice and things going. So this is a work in progress.
So just so everybody knows that I'm not sitting around Facebook. So there, I just found a report, barriers to bylaw diversity, barriers and opportunities for naturalized gardens on private property, review of municipal policies, code enforcement practices in Canada, done by the Ecological Design Lab at Toronto Metropolitan University, July of 24. So again, so this is the type of thing, Madam Mayor, that I'm talking about from a staff perspective to do, to be looking at this. So this goes through, I think, a lot of the, good positive things, and also talks about some of the challenges that exist. In fact, it also has an enforcement process here, which I, obviously looking at my phone, I can't read the little boxes. Yeah. But again, this is the type of thing we will look, and there's actually a jurisdictional policy scan as part of this document. So this will trigger some of the work that we'll have to do to look at it. And I think Mr. Fox actually, this is a paper I think was presented to the Canadian Association of Planners as part of it must have been a conference or something. So yeah, we'll have to look into it.
Thank you for that. And a final comment on this, because we still have 5 things to go here on our agenda today. So, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I just want to correct myself. I said that dandelions are wind pollinated. I don't know why I said that. They're self-pollinated, but the seed is distributed by wind, and so it goes everywhere. But there's a self-pollinated plant. I didn't want to hear a bunch of emails to me by all the biologists in town correcting me, so I wanted to correct myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Remind me never to give you a bouquet of dandelions. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on now. Item 8, new business. Under item A, request for decision amended building bylaws. Mr. Dolter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So staff have recommended proposed amendments to the town of Truro's building bylaw and the building code through the Building Code Act to establish requirements for construction site management. These amendments aim to ensure that all construction or demolition projects are managed in such a way to ensure public safety and reduce or mitigate any negative impact on any neighboring properties, public right-of-ways, or public infrastructure. The proposed amendments are outlined below and highlighted in the attached draft of the building bylaw. Those amendments, just for council information, are highlighted in red if you're looking at a color copy. The requirements for an occupancy deposit has been removed. This procedure was previously implemented to ensure applicants obtain an occupancy permit. However, it is no longer necessary, as most banking institutions now require copies of the permit funding. So just to quickly run through, we've added 1.2.3 is a new definition, adding 2.2.1 Subpart F, permit to include construction site management. 4.1, remove occupancy deposit, adding 6.1 construction site management plan, adding 6.1.1 vehicle and pedestrian management, added 6.1.2 security and safety, added 6.1.3 signage, added 6.1.4 environmental controls, and revised continuing into force from 6.1 to 7.1. The amendments to the building bylaw, the Building Code Act, regarding construction site management will work in concert with the new construction site management policy that staff will be recommending council adopt at an upcoming meeting. The policy will set out details of the requirements of a construction site management plan. A copy of the draft construction site management plan is attached to this request for decision for council's information only at this stage. So that'll be brought forward at a later date, Madam Mayor. So the proposed motion is be it resolved that council give first reading to amend the town of Truro's building bylaw as outlined in the attached document.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dolter. I'd call for a motion. Councillor McGrath, seconder, Councillor Fleming. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First off, I would like to highlight the positives of this. When we are talking about wanting our downtowns, especially more walkable, and especially with our densification that we are looking at, and all of the construction that is currently happening, making things more friendly to pedestrians and managing the the vehicle and pedestrian conflicts around construction sites, I think highly positive step. Really happy to see this. I just have one process question regarding the continuing into force. Section 7.1 reads, this bylaw shall have effect from and after the 6th day of September 2003. Now that is about the day that this was approved by a council of the day. Does that date need to be updated, or with these amendments, or is that just saying that this bylaw from day one continues to be in force from that day?
Actually, that section 7.1, yeah, as you say, Councillor McGrath, it's a holdover from when the bylaw was originally passed. It can probably come out altogether at this stage because we're just amending the bylaw, which has now been in force for over 20 years. So we can make that change when it comes back for second reading. We're allowed to make minor changes to a draft bylaw in between first and second reading. So we can address that.
Could we also just add that today to say strike section 7.1 entirely instead of saying renaming it from 6.1 to 7.1, just strike it all together?
Yes, we could either way.
Just so that it's not forgotten about.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thompson. Councillor Pryor.
Mr. Dolter, what impact will the construction site management have on current requirements to approve post-exemptions to the hours of operations on the site?
I'm going to defer that to Mr. Fox, and he's...
Yeah, can you repeat the question, please?
So what impact will the construction site management plan have on current requirements to approve the post-exemptions to the hours of operations at the sites? So the last couple of weeks, we had some posts about changing the hours.
I think the only change that we had in mind was that we would try and align some of the different, we have some discrepancies now between the building bylaw, development agreements, and the noise bylaw. I think that one of the things we wanted to do was align those, make them consistent, and then the posting of the notices, I'm not sure about that. I'd have to look into that and have a response for you at the second reading.
And does the new policy mean exemptions won't be necessary if less than 24 hours?
Again, I'd have to check that and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, I don't see any more questions in the queue. All those in favor of approving the motion, please say aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion is approved. Thank you very much. Now we're moving on to item 8B, request for decision, Parks and Recreation and Culture Committee appointment. Mr. Dolter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Truro's Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee has a vacancy for a new member. Mayor and Deputy Mayor met to discuss the applications and are recommending that Susan Kolbaba be appointed to the committee. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. So proposed motion is be resolved that council appoint Susan Kolbaba to Truro's Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Dolter. So I would call for a motion. Councillor Fleming, a seconder, please. Councillor Pryor? Any questions or discussions about the name for the appointment for the Parks and Rec Committee? All those in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion approved. Thank you very much. Now we're moving on. Item C, request for decision, capital improvement, the K-9 purchase for the police services. Mr. Dolter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is I know I'm getting old now because I thought we just got Mojo, Chief.
Yes.
So it doesn't seem like he's been here that long. So the police department has an opportunity to purchase a replacement K-9 prior to the April budget approval. The timing is determined by when the animal is available and the training schedule for the Halifax Regional Municipality. This was planned in the capital as a capital expense for 25-26 for the fiscal year. So the proposed motion is be it resolved that council approve the purchase of replacement K-9 for the Truro Police Service during the 24-25 fiscal year, not to exceed $25,000, with funding coming from the capital reserve. And again, this is money that would have come from the capital reserve in the 25-26, and again, as the chief has done in previous purchases of the dog, again, this is a requirement of the police service, and again, limited supply of these types of dogs, so we do have to seize the opportunity when it's available, and because it was not budgeted, this is a special approval of council at this time.
Indeed. Thank you. I'd call for a motion. Councillor Fleming. Councillor McGrath is seconded. Any questions from council? Deputy Mayor.
Just wondering that cost, it seems like a lot for a dog, but that must also include the training of that dog.
It includes the training up to a point, but we actually have an agreement with Halifax Regional Police that we train with them basically at the cost of sending our officer back and forth. So again, that, it's no direct cost to us, a reciprocal agreement. So this is what a police dog, and these are dogs breeded to be police dogs. So again, special breeding, it's just is the price, and it's a U.S. supplier as well too. So again, that's the Canadian dollar amount.
Well, I won't be buying one of those for my kids.
Yeah.
These are not family pets.
Okay. Well, now I'm wondering what the name's going to be. Anyway, it'll be exciting. Okay, Councillor Graham.
Chief, could you remind me of the job of a K-9?
I can, I guess. So K-9's primary responsibilities are detection, apprehension, tracking, and drug detection. So that's what the profiles of the dog. It's a general working dog. So it's not a bomb dog. So like a bomb dog would be a singular task dog. Ours is a general service police dog. So it's primarily tracking, people that are breaking into cars or vehicles or lost persons, someone walks away from an old age home, things of that nature, searching at crime scenes for drugs and weapons and lost property, stolen property. And it does have an apprehension piece where it can apprehend criminals.
That's all great. Thanks. Is there a specific job for public relations with the dog too? It seems really like a popular thing, but is that in the job description?
It is a popular thing, and our dog does do community outreach. It goes to schools and different things like that, so there's a component of that as well. Plus, the officer is on general patrol with the dog, so it's an extra officer on the streets answering calls and backing the other officers up when there's not K-9 specific calls that they're handling.
Thank you, Chief. Councillors, a motion's been moved by Councillor Fleming, seconded by Councillor McGrath. All those in favor of approving the motion, please say aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Approved unanimously. The motion's approved. Thank you very much. Item 8D, under new business, request for decision, temporary boring resolution. Mr. Dolter?
So thank you, Madam Mayor. So the town is requesting a loan of $3,152,300 from the province of Nova Scotia for 3 capital projects. And I'll just point council there, the temporary boring resolution is there. So these are three pieces of equipment. Public Works hydrovac at $733,000. Public Works street sweeper at $419,300. And the stadium refrigeration unit, also known as the ice plant, for $2 million, totaling $3,152,300. Again, and those are all projects that were approved in the previous budget cycle. So this is the money that is required to pay for those projects. So the proposed motion is, be it resolved that council approve the loan to the town of Truro from the province of Nova Scotia. And I would be amiss if I did not also provide direct counsel to the long-term debt impact, because that is always a question. And you can see the trend from March 2025 and onward, projected to March of 2030. The town's doing very well at reducing its debt load. The new debt of $3.15 million does not materially impact our overall debt servicing and the indicators. And the debt service indicators is calculated by dividing our principal and interest payments by the total of our own resource revenue. Basically, at right now, we're at 6.3% as of March 31st, 2025. Will increase to 6.5% by March 31st, 2026. And that is considered in the low risk area, so we're under 10%. So again, we've done well over the last little while retiring debt, and although we're taking on a little bit here, we'll continue, and as we go through the budget process, council will see where our debt is moving, and again, we're in a good position overall to borrow these funds.
What's the loan time period for that, Mr. Dolter? Do you know?
I believe I just got five fingers, so 5 years.
5 years.
5 years it
Very
would
good.
be.
Very good. Councillor McGrath?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question regarding the sweeper. Like, this is a street sweeper?
It is.
Didn't we not just get a new street sweeper? We were just
This
talking.
is the one we're talking about.
This is the new one. So
It's not, it's not an additional one. That's the one that we've taken possession of. This is now the loan to pay that amount.
So this is the one that we've been talking about since I've joined council, about the old one that's been repaired and repaired.
Yeah.
I thought we still had this new one. It was coming in, had already been paid for. No?
No. This is the one, and it took, I think it took 2 years from the time we ordered it to actually getting it in our possession. So it took a long time.
And we have it in our possession now.
We do.
Okay. And now we're asking for the funds to pay for the thing that we already have in our possession. Is that correct?
No, we're not asking for the funds. We're asking for approval for the loan. Council already approved the funds for it. So now this is just the payment, how we're going to pay for it.
Okay, thank you.
Project was already approved.
Clear as mud, Councillor McGrath?
Absolutely.
Great.
And just to be clear, council did approve that we
Yes,
would borrow
we
the
did.
funds. This is just the formal approval.
We did. Councillor Talbot?
Yeah, just getting a little clarification. You just mentioned it was a 5-year term, but this document says not to exceed 12 months.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have to go back.
Thank you.
It is a 5-year term, so I have to, I know, Ms. Russell, if you got any, again, I don't, yeah, again, it is a 5-year term on the loan. So we'll get clarification on that, but yeah. Yeah, I see where you're getting that from, but it is, yeah, it's not, we're not paying $3.52 million off in 1 year, I can guarantee you that. So it is a 5-year term. So that's what we've negotiated. We'll just clear up the paperwork on that. So it is that's a good point, though. So council is approving at this point that amount of money for a 5-year period.
Councillor Fleming?
Thank you, Mayor Hinton. Couple questions. The first one is regards to the ice plant. I know we need an ice plant, but my recollection was it was budgeted for 800,000, not 2 million.
No, it's, in fact, it's budgeted for 3 million,
Okay,
and 1 million came from the province.
all right.
So this
there
is
you
the
go.
balance, which is 2. Yeah, there's been, I know there's some other estimates. It was never 800,000. I think there was some numbers thrown about a different alternative, but it wasn't the same plant as the one we purchased for 3 million.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. And I guess the second question is, like, the ice is there now, like, what's the new plant difference going to be, I guess? If the one that we have now is working, why are we replacing it?
No, the one we're using now is the new plant.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, there you
So
go. So we got
the
it.
old plant in the stadium is somewhere else right now.
Yeah, my apologies.
Yeah. So yeah, the new plant is in place now. This is the one that isn't providing the heat right now, but hopefully will be soon.
I guess, yeah, that's great. We're paying for all the stuff we already have.
Yeah.
This is the loan to make those payments. Yeah.
And remember too, Counselor, that some of these pieces of equipment over the years, we've had to order early to get the discount that we're able to get on them. So that's another thing we have to keep in mind. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, this loan, I had the same question as Councillor Talbot, but it's temporary. So 5 years is considered temporary versus what, 25? Is that how that works?
Yeah, correct. And usually on pieces of equipment like this, we try not to extend the term over too long a period.
Okay.
Although the useful life, I think the current sweeper we've had for 25 years, Mr. McKinnon? It's been around a while. Anyways, it has been around as long as Mr. McKinnon, but almost. So it's been around a while. So
when it comes to capital spending on not buildings, et cetera, but equipment, et cetera, it's usually borrowed for a shorter period of time?
typically it would be because of the, again, and the dollar value as well too. We try not to extend a couple $100,000 purchase over a long time because then you end up paying the interest and increases the price of that.
Okay.
It's within the realm of to be paid within 5 years, given the cash flow.
Okay.
And again, the term on the ice plant itself, even at $2 million, is not. It can be paid off in 5, and it would be, we make a decision whether or not we just made a decision to extend that. But again, I think typically we would try to eliminate that in a 5-year term.
So typically, what do you pay over prime? 1 over prime or something for these sort of things? Do you know?
Again, that rate is set at the time of borrowing, so I don't know if we have that rate. You typically, when they issue the money, do you have a rate now? I'm not sure.
We got a rate for budgeting purposes, so it was estimated to be about 3.75%.
Okay.
But that's not the rate.
Yeah, so the rate will be set when they actually loan us the money. That's the budget purpose rate that we had, so hopefully it's within that. It should be close to that anyways.
Thank you.
Okay, last question, Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and with apologies to those watching at home who don't have the long-term debt impact chart in front of them. If this is a 5-year term and we have the proposed debt laid out in front of us there, if this is a 5-year term, why is that not disappear in year 5?
Because that's our total debt load.
So, but this is the proposed additional debt that has not returned down to 0 by the end of that 5 years.
No, because the thing is, we've got the chart you're looking at, for example, it's showing over $12 million. So that's the outstanding debt in the next 5 years. So that's all of our debt included, and then the proposed debt amount is going down. So that would be the last year. So we would pay off whatever that balance was in the final year or whatever, or extend it if that was the decision at the time. But we would pay it off in that last year. So in 2031, that amount should be finalized.
Okay.
Off the books.
Thank you, and my thanks to Mr. Fox for getting us the chart for review for those at home. Thank you.
Thank you very
or
much.
Ms. Russell, whoever was responsible over there.
For it.
Thank you very much. Okay, councilors, a motion's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approving the motion, please say aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Unanimously approved. Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Item 8E. Under
Okay.
new business, request for decision for the Rec Board appointment. Mr. Dolter.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. So the Rec Board has one vacancy for a citizen appointment representing the town of Truro. The attached application has been put forward to fill the role, and this was provided us to by the board itself. So the Rec Board is recommending Grace Holmes as a citizen appointee for the town of Truro. So again, we have been looking for a board member that was from Millbrook First Nation. We haven't had any success in securing this position. Ms. Holmes actually works directly with First Nations in her main occupation. So again, that was seen as a reasonable compromise and does, I think, fulfill that, and she is a resident of the town. So the proposed motion is be it resolved that council appoint Grace Holmes to the Rec Board to represent the town of Truro.
Thank you, Mr. Dolter. I call for a motion. Councillor McGrath, Councillor Graham, thank you very much. Any questions about the motion? Seeing none, I'd call for the vote. All those in favor of supporting the motion for the appointment to the board, please say aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion is carried. I want to thank council, staff, our CAO, and our solicitor, all those watching our meeting today and those in the gallery. On a positive note and a nice way to end our meeting, I want to congratulate Councillor Talbot. He and his lovely wife Amanda will be celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary on March the 15th. Quite a milestone, and continued health and happiness to you both. Our next public town meeting is going to be on Monday. Yes, let's have a little round of applause for that. We need some this week. Yep. Yes, our next public town meeting is going to be on Monday, April the 7th at 1. I want everyone to have a happy and safe March, continue to be kind to each other and to our town. I declare the town of Truro council meeting for Monday, March the 3rd adjourned at 3:50. Thank you, councillors. It's been a full agenda today. And please remain behind for our in-camera meeting. Thank you, everyone.